Have you ever wanted to learn a new language? Maybe you were inspired by a recent international trip, became obsessed with a foreign film or TV show, wanted to communicate better with a loved one, or just felt like developing a new skill. With Rosetta Stone, learning a new language is easier than you thought. Rosetta Stone has been a trusted expert for 30 years with millions of users and 25 languages offered, including Spanish, French, Japanese, Dutch, and more. Learning is immersive and designed for long-term retention, so you fully learn to speak, listen, and even think in that language. Don't put off learning that language. There's no better time than right now to get started. Listeners can get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 50% off. Visit rosettastone.com/today. That's 50% off unlimited access to 25 language courses for the rest of your life. Redeem your 50% off at rosettastone.com/today.
The changing of seasons can affect how you feel. 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, no matter the time of year.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all. Visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Scott Norton, and you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and Karen Peterson from Post Wrestling. On today's show, we'll review Historic Crossover 2 and cover all its news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Chop Tees store, chop-tees.com/KI Strong Style. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style merchandise. There's free shipping on every order and 10% off your first order. Chop-tees.com/KI Strong Style. And if you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style for IWGP subscribers. If you want access to the weekly live stream, ad-free audio, and bonus content, subscribe at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Karen, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I was joking with you earlier. I'm like, usually you guys call me like once every half year or year or so. And I'm like, twice in 2 months. I'm like, I'm about to start charging you for it.
So Karen,
yes,
let me ask you this before we start the show, because you have immaculate skin. As I noted right before we started recording, my forehead is starting to get old. What do I do for this right here?
Well, insider knowledge, I have an iPhone 15 Pro Max with a softened filter on. However, do you drink enough water?
Yeah, I drink a ton of water.
Do you get enough sleep?
I try to.
Do you have a skincare routine?
Yeah, I wash my face with soap.
And?
Sometimes I put some lotion on.
And?
I got a little black mask every once in a while. I put it on and peel it off my face.
So what you might need to do, especially because, being in Florida, I don't know how much time you spend in your car or outside, a moisturizer that has SPF helps. Like I get like sunburnt and I get freckles very easily, so I've been using that. You might talk to your lady partner and see about, doing a little trip to Yield, CVS, or Walgreens to get something basic. Like sometimes when it comes to cleaning your skin, using soap and water is great. It's a good start, but sometimes you need to have like something that has a little bit of texture to kind of exfoliate the dead skin cells off. Sometimes a little
like a lot of work.
It is. But if you have concerns about aging skin, as speaking as your big sister, everyone's big sister in her mid-40s, this helps. It's a lot, but you and the girly, you take your showers, get your PJs on, you do the skincare together. It's a bonding activity. But in the end, they'll be like, "Man, you are glowing." I mean, or you just find a less stressful job. That helps.
Well, I guess I got to quit Keeping It Strong Style then.
What is it, Keeping It Stressful Style? We ain't doing that here. Yeah. We're having a good time.
They got me talking about women. I have to remember all their names.
They're women, Josh.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, as I mentioned, we got Karen on to help us review historic crossover. First, there was a New Japan show on New Japan World, November 12th, sort of. The superhero Taiji Ishimori Get Ridiculous show from Shinjuku Faith. This was a pay-per-view on NJPW World. I did not watch this show.
Oh, I did.
Karen did not watch the show. So, Josh.
Oh, my gosh. I'm the only person that did my homework.
I had to take my dog to the vet, and I found out about this show about 4 hours ago.
All right. Well, I'll take you guys through the hits here. So, show opens up. We're in Shinjuku Face, and we're like jam-packed in Shinjuku Face, like literally up to the apron, like, what companies used to do that in the Northeast with like, I don't know, Wrestling Revolver and like Beyond and shit like that. They all be pounding the mat. It was like that, except nobody pounded the mat because Japanese fans are, respectful. They're not going to reach into the ring. But yeah, so Taiji Ishimori comes out. There was no English translation when I watched it. It did look like Walker Stewart was going back in post to do his own English translation. Why? I'm not entirely sure, because I can't imagine anybody paying like $23 US after it already aired to go back and get the English translation later. It seemed like one of those things where you watch it live or you don't watch it at all, sort of like Tamashi. But yeah, Ishimori comes out, he cuts a promo, don't know what he said. All of a sudden, these trunks get thrown into the ring, so he runs into the back, and you hear the Young Lion music come on, and Taiji Ishimori rushes back out in Young Lion gear for his fight with Daiki Nagai, which lasted 3 minutes and 33 seconds, which was fine for what it was. Taiji Ishimori ends up picking up the big win with some sort of octopus-style hold type tapping out Daiki Nagai. This is one of the only matches on the whole show that might have been worthwhile to actually watch. Later on, there was a match between the team of Kagetora and Taiji Ishimori versus Brahmin Shu and Brahmin Ryozuki, which was Taguchi. Taguchi came out with this really fucking, I don't even know, like this crazy dress with all this like shaman stuff all over it, but underneath it, he's just in a G-string basically, So it's like some weird like Brahmin comedy gimmick or whatever. I didn't really know Kagetora. I think he wrestles for Dragon Gate. The other guy, Brahmin Shu, he's a freelancer. He does like Big Japan and Freedoms and, Michinoku Pro. And this match starts. It lasts 21 seconds as Brahmin Shu throws powder into the face of everybody on the other side, including the referee. Referee stops the match. Then some politicking ensues, and it turns out that Brahmin Ki, who is the partner of Brahmin Shu, is invited into the match, and we have a 3-on-2 handicap, no disqualification tag team match. They brawl all over the building. It's mostly comedy stuff. This is like the height of DDT-ism. Like we got bowling balls and carts and crazy bullshit, and it was pretty terrible. I'm not gonna lie. Like this was for a very specific type of audience, and it's not me. So I was not really feeling this match, but ultimately Kagetora, Taiji Ishimori, they pick up the win. They take a brief intermission. They come back. Kosei Fujita wrestles Taiji Ishimori. Taiji Ishimori, they do this long thing. I'm kind of inferring what was going on, but they talked about championships or something. And they talked about the long list of titles he's held in New Japan and other places. And I forgot too. At the end of that match, they started doing the Sailor Boys gimmick and tried to get Taiji Ishimori to do the Sailor Boys dance with Taguchi, and he refused. So him and Kosei Fujita, they have a singles match. I was kind of confused why they were mentioning gold so much because Kosei Fujita is not a champion, right?
No.
Correct.
Okay.
But he'll be challenging. He won the Junior Tag League, and they'll be in the 4-way.
Yeah, it was weird. I don't know why they were referencing all the titles that Ishimori's held. But anyways, they wrestled to a 10-minute time limit draw. This was pretty good. This was, like it wouldn't have been out of place on a standard like Road to special singles match. But they wrestled to a 10-minute time limit draw. The interesting thing, Kosei Fujita did have Taiji Ishimori in an extremely compromising near submission position at the very end of the time limit. So kind of put him over a little bit big there. After that, they had a Bullet Club match as Sho and Taiji Ishimori, along with Shun Skywalker, took on Daiki Sekimoto, Jeff Cobb, and Shuji Ishikawa. They went to a double countout, which then led to, and that lasted for like 3 minutes 34 or 3 minutes 48 seconds. Somehow the match got restarted, and the team of Daiki Sekimoto, Jeff Cobb, and Shuji Ishikawa, they defeated the Bullet Club's Sho and Taiji Ishimori along with Shun Skywalker. This was really nothing. It was some fine action, but it just was guys coming in, hitting their shit, and then getting out of there. Nothing major. They also had a artisanal Rumble match with the entrance of Dick Togo, Gedo Akito, Akuto Hidaka, Mazada, Minoru Fujita, Robbie Eagles, Taiji Ishimori, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. They were all in this Rumble, 22 minutes, 58 seconds. The eventual winner was the final entrant, Jun Kasai. And the funny thing here, it was like 10 men, I think, and Ishimori came out 9 and pretty much eliminated everybody and was all happy. And then suddenly the Jun Kasai music hits, and he's like shocked, and he didn't know he was going to be there, and comes in, and they did, they did the spike spot into the head with the skewers, and basically Jun Kasai kicked his ass. The whole thing here is that Ishimori keeps wrestling, not match after match after match after match. And then finally, the main event, Taiji Ishimori versus Dragon Dia. This was probably the only, what I would call like recommended match. We're probably looking at like 3.25 to 3.5 stars, maybe. Wouldn't have been out of place on a regular Super Juniors undercard match. They went 13 minutes, 46 seconds. Ishimori picks up the win. They show respect to one another, and we're off. This was literally nothing in kayfabe that would have affected the great overall picture of New Japan. It definitely served. There's a certain, I call it the Puro Shindies. There's a certain level of Puro Shindi type of wrestling that if you are a fan of that sort of big Japan freedoms, DDT, that sort of stuff, with a wide variety of different styles that don't really appeal to what you're going to see in like All Japan, Noah, and New Japan, probably up your alley. For me, not so much. For $22 US, definitely not so much. And that's my full review of the Taiji Ishimori Shinjuku Face Show.
Well, thanks for taking one for the team and watching that one and giving us a review there. Because I refuse. I was not going to watch that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. Like, it's weird because we've seen some shows in the past that were clearly like New Japan. They're produce shows, but they're New Japan branded produce shows, like the first All-Star Junior Festival. Very clearly a New Japan product. This one, like, I don't know. Maybe New Japan. Maybe they footed the bill. I think maybe it was their camera crew, but like. Nothing about this looked, felt, seemed, or screamed New Japan other than it's on their platform. Like this, in cage match, this should be like listed as like Japanese indies, like with just the Japanese flag next to it.
Yeah. So that was that. Now let's jump into Historic Crossover 2. This was from the Edion Arena, Osaka. We had a reported attendance here of 3,547. So compared to Historic Crossover 1, that was in Ariake Arena. We had 7,102 for the attendance for that show, with the main event of Kairi and Mayu for the first ever IWGP Women's title. And we also had the semi-main event of Ospreay versus Umino for the IWGP US/UK title. And then some other Osaka dates this year. So New Beginning in Osaka was also in the same building, 5,327. Of course, that was ZSJ versus Bryan Danielson and the Dog Pound cage match. And then the first two nights of G134 were in this building. Night 1, we had 4,177 with Tsuji Takeshita and Shingo Naito as the top two matches. And then night 2 was 2,545 with ZSJ versus Naito and Tsuji versus Finlay as the top two matches. And then just recently, we had Power Struggle in this building, 3,773 with Finlay, Taichi, and Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shingo as the top two matches. So, guys, I guess initial thoughts on the attendance here. Karen, how about you go first?
Well, I think part of it is that they had, Power Struggle was 2 weeks ago? They had just run this building a couple of weeks ago. So I think that's part of it. The difference other than that was that, the previous Historic Crossover was also on a Sunday, but it was in Tokyo, where there's a far denser population of fans who come and watch wrestling. I think we'll get into my feelings on the lack of build for this card and how this card compared to the original. It was a fun time, but it didn't have the same level of expectations that the first one did. And I don't know if that was because it lacked, I don't want to say it lacked star power, but there was a very, it just felt like they just kind of threw the card together. It wasn't announced. There was very minimal buildup for a lot of it. One of the matches that got the most buildup, which actually had actual crossover implications, will be the match that involves Tekla and Natsupoi. But when we get to that part of it, I'll talk about that in more detail. But I think the novelty is kind of worn off because it's been almost half a year since New Japan has fully acquired Stardom. The conversion has been completed, but this should have been a very big celebration of that. And it just kind of felt a little bit like an afterthought wedged into the ever so busy end of the year, death march to the Tokyo Dome and the New Year's programming. So that's the short version of it. And I also don't think it was worth $35. That made me mad.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked to wake up on Sunday and fire up the New Japan World, and I'm literally thinking all right, I'm going to do my due diligence, turn on this show, pop it in, let's watch it. And I was like, wait a second. Y'all trying to charge me for this? Oh, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. Was the last crossover, I think it was a pay-per-view, right?
I think it was, yeah.
I believe it was, but I was there, so I really don't have a basis for comparison.
Yeah,
I think it was, but I think you had some really great points there, Karen. That show was a lot better built and promoted prior to and felt worth the money, whereas this one, not to downgrade those who are involved in it, but there's promoting and then there's promoting, and this one was really not that promoted, if we're being honest. And then you brought up some great points. They just ran this building very recently, and that wasn't even the strongest numbers. It's a solid number, and this one is too. But it's pretty clear they're not, lighting the world on fire when it comes to business at this point in time in this arena.
Yeah, I think right now both promotions are not as hot as they were in 2022. I feel like Stardom was really, really hot in 2022 and was picking up a lot of steam, momentum, a lot of buzz. Everybody was talking about Stardom. And now both promotions, I feel, are kind of in a lukewarm position and trying to rebuild and get back to their former glory. And also, like you mentioned, Karen, Historic Crossover 1, there's a lot of important matchups on there. Like I mentioned earlier, you had that big match of Ospreay and Umino for the IWGP US/UK title. That was, I think, Umino's first match back from excursion. So that was like a big, spotlight there. And they always have great matches. And then they did a great job of building the crowning of the first ever women's IWGP title. And Also, they put Mayu and Kairi, two of the top Stardom Joshi stars in Japan in that matchup. And so, again, it just felt really important. While we did have a women's title match on this show and some other top stars, it just didn't feel as monumentous, as important as they made the first crossover feel.
I think another noticeable difference is that Stardom still hasn't completely recovered from the exodus of talent leaving earlier this year for Marigold. Because on the previous card, you had Utami teaming with Tanahashi. You had Zack Sabre Jr. and Julia going against Shuri and Tom Lawler, building Shuri and Julia's match at the Stardom's biggest show at the end of the year. There was consequences, and it was story building for the next set of shows.
Yeah.
There was some story building, but for the most part, it was just a feel good, hey, we're family now kind of vibe this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there was definitely some post-match comments where some of the talent made their feelings known that they'd like to have more interaction and more crossover, but they said that 2 years ago during the first one, and it's been few and far between. So, I'm not holding my breath that comes to fruition, especially since both companies' booking has been up and down, up and down. It's hard to make that aspect of it cohesive in the first place.
Oh, and the other problem is scheduling, right? You have New Japan schedule, Stardom schedule, international US tour scheduling. You've got stuff with AEW. There's too much overlap, and which makes it very problematic when you're trying to put a card together like this and have it mean something. I
could do it.
Well, I know you can do it.
Give me the book. Give me the schedule. I'll coordinate.
Well, we'll go through here and we'll talk about all the matches. Before we jump into that, Karen, I want to give you a chance right now to go ahead and plug your post-wrestling review and all stuff you're doing over there on Post.
Well, since we're covering Historic Crossover and you guys are getting ready to dive into World Tag League, if you want my complete unfiltered thoughts in a nice condensed 2.5 hour format, Bruce Lord and I over on the Post Wrestling Cafe did a match by match breakdown of this entire card, along with a lot of things that need to be done setting up the road to the Dome, things that New Japan could improve upon to make both New Japan and Stardom successful moving forward. My usual rant about having too many titles, too many women's titles, and everything else. So that, and the 30th month, I have my monthly column on everything Joshi over at postwrestling.com called the Dream Slam Monthly. And yeah, that's about it for now.
Cool.
I am going to listen to that. It's behind a paywall, right?
It is. Yeah. You have to. This is not for the freeloaders.
I'm gonna pay my money. I'm gonna go behind that paywall. I'm gonna listen to it, and then I'm gonna come on this show. I'm gonna say all the same shit.
And then they'll be like, for someone who doesn't watch a lot of Joshi, Josh, you kind of sound like you're channeling Karen there.
No, I meant only the New Japan stuff, not the Joshi.
All right. Well,
we have very similar takes on a lot of things, so I mean, it won't be that much different, honestly.
Well, let's jump into this card. So we had the pre-show match, and Karen, let me know if I butcher any of these names as we're going through as well. So we had Aya Sakura and Hanako defeating Reina Yagami and Sayaka Kurara in 9 minutes and 57 seconds.
The good thing about this match is that all of these girls actually debuted within the last year. So they're all kind of like, this is your young lionesses, your dokies, your classmates. They all have very limited experience in ring. They are, for the most part, in different factions. Hanako is in Empress Nexus Venus with Mina Shirakawa and Maika. Aya Sakura and Sayaka Kurara, their names sound very much the same. They dress in very similar colors, both in Cosmic Angels, and they both do karate. So it's very easy to confuse the two of them. The one you're going to want to keep your eye on for the future is Rana Yagami, because she's in God's Eye and she's learning everything possible from Shuri. She's the one you're going to want to keep an eye on. And she's also recently participated in Pro Wrestling Waves, Catch the Wave Summer Tournament that actually Saya Kabatani ultimately ended up winning.
Nice. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that these were necessarily like I did get the vibe that these were probably younger performers, but I didn't think that they just debuted in the last year. They seemed a lot more seasoned than that in terms of the work and you know, how they projected themselves. The only name I was familiar with going into the match was Hanako, and I'm not even sure how I know who that is. I just
she was on some New Japan Strong shows this year.
Okay, that makes more sense.
She had a mini excursion over the summer here in the United States.
Okay, I was like, I know the name, I know I've seen her. I'm just not 100% sure where. But you know, this was a really good tag team match, a really strong opener. I know it was a pre-show tag team match, and we're used to seeing a certain caliber of, you know, a pre-show tag team match. It's usually a nothing, throwaway, whatever. These girls were really, really working their asses off, and there was a lot of spirit, a lot of near falls, a lot of saves, and just a lot of emotion and hard work here. And I don't know, this came off to me like something that could have easily been slotted into the main card, and it wouldn't have skipped a beat.
I actually preferred this to the previous historic crossover where they did that giant rumble where nobody knew anybody from Stardom. So it was just like, let's just put everybody on the card, and no one really knew who they were. So this was kind of a very good way to start getting people interested in Stardom.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice way to open up the show. Also, kind of that quote unquote kind of young lion style matchup here. Get your fast paced younger talent out here. And so, yeah, this was a really fun matchup. Hanako ends up picking the win up with a swinging face plant slam. I'm not sure she has a name for it, but it looked pretty cool. Hanako, pretty tall athlete there and pretty impressive. So, yeah, all four of these girls were pretty impressive. And, yeah, a great way to get in. And it's, yeah, very impressive for only them being competing for a year. And so that's, I think, one thing you see about the Stardom system, the Joshi system. They start young, they get in there, and they learn really well. And so after a year, like they got the basics down, they're killing it.
Yeah. So, sorry. Hanako she's the tallest girl on the roster. So she's 180 centimeters. So she's close to 5'9", 5'10", which is very uncommon for a Japanese woman.
Wow. Yeah, and I mean, they definitely, like you said, Jeremy, like they have the basics down, and I guess this is your de facto young lion match. But you know, the young lions in New Japan, they're required to work a particular style that's very, very rudimentary, very, very basic. Even if they're capable of doing more, they don't most of the time. This was not that. This was a much more advanced style of match layout that they did here. I did get nervous as soon as this match happened. I was like, I know I'm not a Joshi expert, but I don't know anybody on here. And I was like, that's when I was like, Jeremy, we gotta get somebody. but then as the show went on, I was like, okay, I know most of the girls that came over, their alignments have changed, stories have shifted. I don't know what's going on with everybody, but I don't feel so bad knowing that these four women in general, you know, all started in the past year.
They're very, very new to you and to a lot of people.
Gotcha.
And Karen, I like that you brought up the stats there of the height, because throughout this whole production, it was kind of the Stardom style where in the middle of the matches, you would kind of have like the lower third pop up with like the height, weight, date of birth, where they're from. And like, I just really love
that.
Yeah, I love that presentation. It just kind of adds to that sports feel. And especially like if you don't know the talent, like it's a great way to be like, boom, all right, here's this person. Yeah, they're this tall, this, you know, blah, 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 and can give the stats.
So I have a question for you. I watched the Japanese feed because it was run by Makoto Oe, who does all the Stardom commentary with Haruo Murata, who does a lot of New Japan stuff. So I wanted to get like my authentic Stardom experience by listening to some old familiar faces. And they also had a great panel that joined. They had Tanahashi at one point. They had Yuji Nagata on one point. Did they, when they do those stats, did they put them in English on the English feed, or was it all in Japanese?
It's in English.
It was in English.
Oh, okay. So they were okay.
They're not in English on the Japanese feed?
No, they're in Japanese.
Well, that's ridiculous.
I know.
I was watching some old Japanese wrestling match from like the 90s with my girlfriend, and like they show the graphics and everything's in English. She's like, why is it in English? She's like, it should be in Japanese. And I'm like, that's just, they do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just always kind of been that way.
Well, I mean, things like winner were in English, but like things like, you know, their finishing move and like usually like, you know, where they're from, sometimes it was in Japanese. So I was like, I wonder if they ever do switch it over to English. So
Yeah,
They did.
Yeah, it was in English. And then on commentary, we had Walker Stewart, Chris Charlton, Tom Fain, and then I think Xena. Is that?
Yeah. I believe she's Australian, and she is one of the only full-time foreigners. She came and went around the time that Mariah May was over in Stardom, but she's over there in Japan full-time. I think she's their only full-time foreign wrestler besides Tekla right now.
Gotcha.
If she gets signed to WWE, then all these weird accounts are going to be like, I can't believe it. Triple H and Shawn have done it again. They got Xena. I cannot wait, even though they've never seen this woman or anything. But no, I thought she did a good job on commentary as well.
Yeah.
I thought the commentary, it was kind of a little, I don't want to say, it was a little disconjointed because you had two separate teams trying to find their like rhythm and beat, but it was still good all the same.
Yeah.
I think Walker Stewart is starting to do some stuff with Tom as well to do English commentary for Stardom. So I think there's still that filling out period where everyone's trying to, figure out the right balance. Even with us, a multi-person booth, sometimes you're talking over the person next to you.
Yeah, and they were like right behind the Japanese team, so like you couldn't really see them. And at points, like they were like putting like bunny ears behind like Tanahashi and Nagata and like goofing off like in the background.
Dude, at the end of the show, they complained about them not being able to see. They're like, yeah, hopefully next time we do this, we'll be closer to the ring.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they had the best view themselves.
Yeah.
Kind of.
They have their little monitors.
Yeah. So then the main card would open up. We had the Cosmic Angels team of Sarai Aino and Tam Nakano defeating the God's Eye team of Shuri and Tomoka Inaba in 10 minutes and 16 seconds.
Now, usually when I saw this match, my first reaction was, why is the World of Stardom champion, your top champion, in the opening match of the show? And then this match happened. And it kind of reminded me of how you're like, when you really want to fire up an audience, you really wanted to get people in the door because, there's always the audience was kind of empty. People were still filing in. Tam and Shuri are so wildly popular that putting this is a very strategic placement for this match on the card. Not only because it's apparently building to possibly Shuri challenging Tam at the end of the year to possibly have her second reign as World of Stardom champion, which that would be a fantastic match. But it was a guaranteed way to get a lot of fans in the door early, whether they were interested in Stardom or they are a diehard Stardom fan. It was a very strategic move. And Saori Ano in the last year also carried the Wonder of Stardom championship. So she's gaining, even though she's a freelancer still, she's getting wildly popular within Stardom. And then for Tomoka Inaba, for those who follow the Just Tap Out Taka Michinoku School of Wrestling, she was the girl that he built his women's division around after Micah got signed away by Stardom. Mm-hmm. So she only has been wrestling since 2019. So she's still relatively new. So, level wise compared to Shuri, Saori, and Tam, she kind of looks like the odd person out, but that's only because her wrestling experience as a whole is probably a third of each of these other wrestlers. But if you have to learn with anybody, she's tagged with Shuri for Goddess Tag League before. So she's probably probably paired with the best person out of the four.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was going to say also there was some fallout here from the 5-star Grand Prix. So Anyo defeated Shuri in the Grand Prix, and Inaba defeated Nakano in the Grand Prix. So some fallout from that tournament there.
Yeah, and I guess their tag team tournament is going on right now, and they're approaching the finals. And they were referencing, I guess they have a similar structure to the finals to what the G1 this year, where 3 teams from each block are going to get through.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's a finals. Am I wrong on that? That's what they said.
I haven't been keeping up with the tag leagues, to be perfectly honest. The dog's been kind of sick, so I haven't been able to keep up with as much wrestling as I would like. But I always worry that Stardom is in the wake of all these people leaving earlier this year. They're trying to do too many things without. I hate to say that, Okada might be a people pleaser, but I feel like he's trying to do too many things to keep everybody happy because, we are now officially in contract re-sign season. So between November and January, this is where people decide if they're going to continue past March 31st of next year. So you have the build to the end of the year, the start of the new year, but at the same time, it's are they doing too much and trying to see what sticks? That's what it's felt like at sometimes. So.
I got confused for a second when you said Okada's trying to make everybody happy, and I was like,
Saro Okada, the president of you didn't hear about Kazuchika Okada taking over Stardom.
I didn't know what I was like, Okada's not trying to make everybody happy.
Okada, the lesser known Okada that works.
He won't even do
Bushi
business
Road.
with Takeshita, so he's definitely not gonna.
Hey, you never know.
But yeah, no, they mentioned that, I guess, and I could be wrong here. This is just what I gathered.
No, you're right, Josh. They mentioned on English commentary that the top three.
Top three from each block, and number one will get the bye, and then the number two and number three are going to fight each other. And I think that I don't want to say these specific teams are in that tournament. Maybe they are, or some of these girls are facing off against one another in the tournament. They just referenced it a lot. I didn't fully know the whole context. One thing I thought was weird, like Shuri was wearing white, and I don't know who was on the Cosmic Angels side that was wearing white, whether it was Tam or
Saudi Anno.
Okay, and then Tam was wearing like a black and purple, and then so was Inaba. So it was really confusing that like each team had a white and a blackish purplish gear, and I was like, they look like they should be teaming with the other person and not each other. That was very confusing. Yeah,
so Shuri is so heavily known with wearing red that every time she changes her costume to a different color, and this time it being white, everyone's like, is she going after the white belt? And I'm like, Shuri doesn't need the white belt. Let somebody who needs the number 2 belt, let them have it. She doesn't need it. She should be having the IWGP championship, but that's a story from another day. But yeah, Tam is the world champion, but she won't give up her purple. So she kind of has this like purple goth girlfriend phase that she's going through right now. Saudi wears all white with a little bit of royal blue, and Tomoka wears all white with black. So yeah, it was if you're not familiar with the wrestlers, it was very difficult to keep up with who was doing what in the match.
They also, they referenced, I guess Tam and Saria Ano, they're both 2/3 of the trios titles.
Yes.
The artists of Stardom.
Okay. And beyond, so essentially Tam's got the trios titles, she's got the world title, and she's on track to be a finalist potentially in the tag tournament. They're like, she's trying to be, a 3-crown champion within the company simultaneously. I didn't realize she was the champion because Maiko was champion, right?
Maiko was champion, and then Natsuko Tora got it right before the 5-star, but then decided
everyone fucking freaked out.
And then that's when Tekla showed up, and Oedo Tai started turning into hate, and Kamitani decided to leave Queen's Quest and become the Phoenix Queen. And Kamitani finally found her footing as the Phoenix Queen. At first, she looked a little awkward, but she's kind of vibing with it. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, they're just, again, I feel like they're trying to do too much all at the same time. But yeah, Tam doesn't need the Artist of Stardom Championship. I don't know why it's on her. Saori doesn't need it, and Natsupoi is the third person holding it with them. I guess they haven't figured out what other faction could hold it. But
gotcha.
I have a feeling that Fukuoka Double Crazy with Hazuki and Koguma will probably, if they don't win it, I don't know who will.
I didn't even realize that she was the champion until literally the end of the match. I must have missed her bringing out the red belt during the intros. And then when she's standing there with the red belt, I'm like, is she world champion?
Her gown and the skirt that goes with the gown are both very poofy, so it's very easy for the belts to get lost in the, like, think early 80s like Barbie dresses where it's like lots of chiffons going on. There was a lot of tutu action, so it was very easy not to notice them.
Yeah, I was just shocked that they had her, and not to say that this was a bad utilization, but at the same time I felt like if you want to promote Stardom and she's your top star, isn't there a more prominent place on the card or utilization that maybe she's deserving of? Because I was surprised that this is where they slotted them.
I think part of it is also that around this time last year, Tam injured her knee, and she was supposed to carry the red belt until Stardom Dream Queendom at the end of the year. So that led to her vacating the title, Maika and Suzu Suzuki having a mini tournament to see who would get the belt. And then one of them ended up going to the end of the year show last year. So I feel like this is kind of a make good for Tam missing the main event last year. But again, it was we want to talk about the audience numbers. It's what, close to 3,000 less than the first time they ran Historic Crossover. So they probably intentionally put it there to get people to buy tickets and get them in the door early. That's the only reason I could think of why you'd have your world champion and two of the best wrestlers aside from the world champion as your Super Junior opener, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good opener, and Tam got the win here, hitting a Michinoku style driver to get the win over Inaba, so getting some revenge from that 5-star Grand Prix loss, and it seems like it could be potentially Shuri stepping up as the next challenger for Tam. There's a couple big shows coming up for them. They have their big, I think it's Dream Queendom. I think that's towards the end of the month in December. Is coming up, part of Wrestle Kingdom week, and then we know that there will be Stardom Stars featured on Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty January 4th and 5th, so maybe that red belt match will happen on one of those 3 shows.
Tam needs justice for her 5-minute match against Kairi 2 years ago.
Yeah. So following that, we had another tag team matchup here with 2 newer factions that have arrived since the last time we really focused in on Stardom. So we had the Neo Genesis team of Azumi, Mai Sarai, and Miyu Amasaki defeating the Hate team of Konami, Arena, and Ruka. Karen, can you tell us how did Neo Genesis and Hate, how do these factions come about?
All right, so Hate is the rebirth of Oedo Tai. So the storyline that was going in end of last year into this year was, I think it had a lot to do with people leaving the company and a certain match that may have happened between Utami and one WWE superstar, Io Sky, who was Io Shirai, the original founder of Queen's Quest. But that's just me. I'm not saying anything official. That's just me like thinking out of my own head. But it was as a result, there was the complete dissolution of Queen's Quest. There was another, 5-on-5 losing faction completely gone. And then during the match, Tekla shows up, everything happens. And basically Queen's Quest lost again and Queen's Quest can't catch a break. And the only frustrating thing about the dissolution of Queen's Quest was no sooner did the bell ring and, Hate stalks off being all happy about it all. Shuri, Starlight Kid, Suzuki, everyone's running down to the ring to pick the bones, being like, we know you guys just had to break up, but we've got a faction and we've got a faction. And it's recruiting season, baby. Come join us. And Azmi's just like, can we have a week or 2 to process this first, y'all? So it was the Neo Genesis is basically you're under 25, the very young, they're very Harajuku Garu, like super colorful, very kawaii and cute. So there's Azumi, Mei Sarah, Miyu Amasaki, who am I forgetting? Suzuki, which is kind of feels like an outlier at times. And why am I forgetting oh my God, there's one other person. Who am I forgetting? 1, 2, 3. Oh God, this is embarrassing. I'm having a complete brain fart. I'll remember it later when I don't need it. But so they went, it was Hina, I think. Maybe not.
She one of the twins or triplets?
She's Rena's twin sister.
Yeah.
So Rena and Hina were in 2 separate factions. Rena was originally in Tokyo Cyber Squad and now has gone over to Oedo Tai, now Hate. And then I want to say that Hina and Lady C ended up joining Shuri in God's Eye. This is how rusty I am on my Stardom lore, and I'm very sorry about it.
This is crazy. I can't keep track of what is happening. In Japan, it just stays the same forever.
There used to be an annual Stardom draft, at the beginning of the year during their New Year's shows. It was all the captains where they would all get a 5-person scramble, and then depending on when you were eliminated, that was the order of who gets to pick first.
Yeah,
they haven't done that in a couple of years, but they've been they dissolved Donna Del Mundo. They have Neo Genesis. They've got Hate, which is just Oedo Tai feeling like House of Torture and Bullet Club because there's so many damn people in it. And that's a pattern that you're going to feel throughout half of this card because there's a lot of people in matches that are in Hate. And then, Konami was in God's Eye and then turned around and rejoined Oedo Tai /Hate. So
very Dragon Gate.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, and then on the Neo Genesis side, so Sarai, she is the current high speed champion, and then Amasaki is the current Future of Stardom champion.
Yes, and she recently beat Rina, who beat her older sister Hanen's longest defense streak for it.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched this match, I just, I saw Neo Genesis and I was like, this is just your white meat baby faces with the high flying. This is, Sting's squadron essentially taking on Hate, which is just the NWO in female version, which is just House of Torture and Bullet Club derivatives. So, this was your classic white meat baby faces versus big bulking, badass heels. That's what happened here.
So my brain fart was that Starlight Kid is the fifth member of Neo Genesis.
Oh, is she?
She was the one she got kicked out.
So she's not evil anymore.
No. That's why her and Despy are so colorful and happy now.
Azumi and Starlight Kid are in the same faction now?
Let them be a tag team.
Yeah, that's really crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. But no, yeah. And you could tell definitely there's a huge dichotomy between the style of work here. You had, basically, cheating heels that could work as strong bases. Then you had high flying, high speed style baby faces. I mean, yeah, this was a triples match or a trios match, but it kind of reminded me in some ways of I don't know, like the Rockers versus like Powers of Pain or the Twin Towers, just like very fast paced, young, up and coming, hot stars versus, the cheaters who are all clad in black and they're going to take shortcuts and they're going to brawl. And that's what the story of this match really was. And it really did present pretty clearly, without even knowing very much about the characters, like what they were about, what the story was, and you kind of caught on pretty quickly.
Yeah, and also, we're very familiar with Azumi, and she is really becoming a big star in Stardom, and she looked great here in this match, and she ended up picking up the win here over Arena. And on English commentary, they were kind of teasing that, Azumi is normally kind of a standout in the high-speed division, and it's on one of her faction mates, so would she end up challenging for that title? But later on in the show, we would actually see what Azumi is going to be up to next. So it was a good win here to kind of set up things that were going to come later on in the show. So then following that, we had a straight up New Japan matchup here. We had the United Empire team of Callum Newman, Francesco Akira, and Jeff Cobb defeating Bolton Oleg, Tiger Mask, and Toru Yano in 8 minutes and 5 seconds.
I thought this shit was mad out of place. Like, I just didn't I can't really say the same maybe the same is true for some of the earlier women's matches, just in terms of a kayfabe standpoint. I couldn't say because I'm not as privy to the hierarchy of Stardom. So I don't know if they were giving us like your leftover offerings or if these were showcases. I really don't know. But with this, we know what the fuck this is. I mean, this is something that could have opened road to whatever night 3 in some prefecture gymnasium. Like, this is maybe even a pre-show match. I don't know why it was on here. I think you could have done much more interesting crossover-y type things with the guys involved here than dragging out Tiger Mask, Yano and having them drag down Oleg Bolton. It was just weird to me. And I mean, I guess fair play because you had your ladies matches. Now you have your men's match, but
yeah,
it's crossover. I'd like there to be some crossover.
The thing that frustrates me about this match, and it's not that I dislike any of the wrestlers in it, I feel like they put they put Newman and Akira and Cobb and Oleg on this show purely because they are very large draws with the Japanese audience. But they could have given them a better match.
Yeah.
But there's also a distinct, there's very noticeable omissions from the New Japan roster on this show. You're just 4 guys, very noticeably absent besides Taichi. LIJ, nowhere to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
House of Torture, nowhere to be seen. Chaos, nowhere to be seen. There's a lot of people missing from the show.
That's not true.
Which
Toru Yano's chaos.
Well, I would have rather you had Ishii in place of Toru Yano for him just to, go at Jeff Cobb.
Yeah.
There's just like, and I think that's one of the things that frustrates me about it, because it's an opportunity to put out your best wrestlers, but I also feel like they intentionally kept a lot of people off to keep them healthy for World Tag League. And if that's the case, this show needs to be placed elsewhere in the calendar where it's not going to be putting your entire tournament at risk, and that's why a lot of people aren't on it.
Yeah. And speaking of World Tag League, this matchup essentially was a preview for one of the matches in World Tag League. So Newman and Cobb will be in World Tag League together, and then Bolton Oleg and Toru Yano, 2/3 of the Never Six-Man champions, they will also be in World Tag League. So a little bit of a World Tag League preview with this matchup here, but
Can't wait for that one.
I don't think that they need to do that here. This is all about the crossover and kind of featuring these stars maybe in matches you wouldn't see them in, or getting some more Stardom interaction. I would have preferred they've done something a little bit more interesting with these guys, but I guess they figured, we gave you a Stardom trios match, we're going to give you a New Japan trios match, and also World Tag League's coming up, so they wanted to push that. So that's what we got here. So, and it was, you mentioned, Josh, your standard, Road 2 style matchup here. And we had Francesco Akira hitting the fireball double knees to Tiger Mask to get the win.
Yeah, I think what Karen brought up there, the lack of noticeable names and factions from within New Japan, I don't even think it's necessarily a situation where you needed to have full roster involvement, everybody, all hands on deck. No, not at all. But give us something. Like no Naito, that's fucking weird. You know what I mean? Like
I'm still holding out for the Desperado Starlight Kid versus Azumi and Hiromu match. I need someone to book that match for the next historic crossover, please.
That'd be awesome.
A lot of these matches don't even necessarily need to be anything more than especially like the crossover tag team matches, because of the nature of the spectacle of it all. They don't have to be hardworking, very dangerous matches. I mean, obviously every time they get in the ring, it's a risk, but Naito would have been fine if he worked this show, whoever Sonata or whoever else would have been fine working this show.
If Tanahashi can work this show,
exactly.
Sonata can work this show.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, speaking of Sonata, some of his stablemates were in action here. So we had the Bullet Club War Dogs team of Drilla Maloney and Gabe Kidd. They teamed up with Hate members Natsuko Tora and Saya Kamatani to defeat Tanahashi, Taguchi, and members of Stars, Hanan and Saya Ida.
So we have small Saya, which is Saya Ida, and we've got tall Saya, which is Saya Kamatani on opposite sides. It's interesting because, way back when, many, many years ago, they were both in Stars together. So it's kind of great to see the journey that, Saya Ida has stayed in Stars, and she's kind of like, she's like, if you were to take Togi Makabe and make him about 5 feet tall, that's Saya Ida. She's known as the Macho Gordy-san, the mighty little gorilla. And then Hanan is the young lioness. She's just, I think she's 19 going on 20. She could be easily someone that they can build the company around moving forward. She was the Cinderella tournament winner earlier this year. She's very much on everyone's short list to win the white belt. Probably not in this year, maybe in 2025. Natsuko Tora, she was the one who kind of took over Oedo Tai when Kagetsu retired. And the problem with Oedo Tai now, Hate, they have an embarrassment of riches. They've got too many talented wrestlers that could easily be the leader, which kind of at times detracts from Natsuko being the leader. So, previously when Natsuko was out injured, Starlight Kid was the mouthpiece. Then Starlight Kid poached Momo Watanabe from Queen's Quest. And then Tekla showed up, and now they have Kamatani. So they have a lot of people in Hate right now, but they need to figure out who they want to build the unit around. If it's going to be pseudo Bullet Club-esque, where Tekla becomes your Jay White, your Bullet Club era Kenny Omega, that sort of route, or if you're going to focus on Kamatani, who, you know, was the golden child who's fallen from grace now. So it's an interesting dynamic. And what I liked about this was that I will give my flowers to Drilla Maloney and Gabe Kidd. They did the most in this match to not only protect Natsuko Tora and Kamatani from Taguchi, but to also make Hanan and Saya Ida look like they were, you know, they were selling for these girls when, you know, they're supposed to be the heels. They really don't have to, but they did everything to be like, ooh, we're going to do this. And be like, oh, we're not really going to do this. And if we do this, it's going to be, I'm going to be the one to take all the brunt. This girl is going to be fine. Like, I've never felt the girls were in safer hands than with the Wardogs.
Well, they definitely.
And then Taguchi went and made it all weird.
Yeah, I was say they definitely needed some reinforcement there because of Taguchi just upping the pervertness to a next level here. Beginning of the match, he gets in there with Saya Kamatani, and he's, you know, making the googly eyes at her and, you know, trying to put the moves on her. And then later on in the match, I believe he was in the ring with Natsuko Tora, and he like sticks his pants down his trunks and looks like he's doing like a jerk off kind of motion or wanting to pull his pants off. Not quite sure.
Trying to get his hands all like, you know, like when you get that sweat in, you know, between your tights.
Yeah.
I feel like that he's trying to do like a stink palm kind of thing, but he did both palms at the same time. It was a bit much.
Yeah. This man's doing this with the president right in the ringside. Like,
it's standing right next to me. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Ew.
If I'm Tanahashi, I'm like, might need to, you know, talk about your conduct here, Taguchi.
You could have put. I'm sorry. You could have put Hiroki Goto in this match instead of Taguchi. You know, he tagged with Micah at the original historic crossover against Tanahashi and Utami. I would have rather a Goto. I know he's supposed to, they're saving him. They're going to roll him out for World Tag League. He's going to do all the Goto things, but he could have made this match better and make it less creepy.
Yeah. So yeah, and then also, you know, for Saya Kamatani, I'm really surprised that they did turn her heel, because yeah, she was kind of that. It seemed like they were kind of building her up to be that kind of next big star, next big bay face, and super high flying into that beautiful Phoenix Splash all time. And so yeah, turning her heel now into as a member of Hate, but it does seem like even though she is heel, she's still doing a lot of her athletic moves, and it's still very impressive to watch.
One of the things I liked about when it first happened, I was like, why Kamatani? And then I had to go back and do a bit of thinking. And I feel like the story they've told with her fall from grace starts with last year's 5-star Grand Prix, when in the opening night, she climbed up a scaffolding to try to do like a swan dive onto Tam Nakano, dislocated her elbow. She was out for the tournament, scrapped her plans for the rest of the year, and she was out for a while. And then the story when she came back was she's too scared to do the Phoenix Splash anymore. But then it also later turned into for the sake of her elbow and her body and her career and her well-being, she shouldn't do it anymore. So it became the character crisis of, if I can't do this one move, the one move that's made me a star and the one thing that everybody knows is my signature thing, who am I as a wrestler? What can I do? I can't win the big one. I can't win I couldn't win the tournament. I couldn't win this. I couldn't do that. So it was kind of like her just like spiraling and losing a sense of self, which is after I took some time to be like, all right, I don't understand it, but okay, well, let's go with it. Then I gave it some thought. It made more sense. But it's like, I like the fact that she's starting to find a style that still shows off her strengths, but doesn't put her in danger, knowing that she can't do moves she to do safely anymore.
Yeah. And we had a comment here from the chat from our buddy Zach saying, Sayabusa got to beat Tam now.
I mean, that's what I thought the Dream Queendom matchup was going to be, because Tam is forever the wall that Saya Kamatani can't beat.
Good boy.
But it might be 2020. She may need to wait until 2025 to dethrone and get her red belt shot.
Yeah. So overall, this was this was kind of more of your kind of fun, goofier matchup with the heel shenanigans and all the Taguchi shenanigans. So towards the end, Gabe Kidd hit Taguchi with a pile driver to get the win. And then post-match, you had Gabe Kidd beating up Tanahashi on the floor. Tora was also cutting a mic, and she spray painted like the black spray paint in Tanahashi's hair, and saying,
she blue misted him too.
Yeah. So essentially saying, she doesn't want Tanahashi to kind of have this good old, retirement send off, and wants to cause, terror for him as well. So yeah, poor Ace just left laying.
She made it seem like she's going to wrestle him in a singles match, which I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but
I don't want to see that. I feel like if there has to be another historic crossover, it's going to be her and Evil against Tanahashi and probably Mayu Iwatani trying to save the company. And Mayu has to do all the work, and maybe Evil will actually wrestle.
I did have a thought. They'll never do this, but I did think, how could they actually add some juice to Tanahashi versus Evil in a way that I would actually care about it? What if Evil loses, then House of Torture has to disband?
What's he going to join Hate? He's going to go over to Stardom, do a Stardom run?
No, like at Wrestle Kingdom this year, like in their singles match, that's something where like Tanahashi beats him, they're done. Then I can finally get behind that match and all the shenanigans.
The thought I had is that, when they were trying to throttle Tanahashi, Evil went in the ring with a pair of scissors. I'm wondering if a hair versus hair match for them might be on the line, because Tanahashi, hair is his thing, but Evil also has great hair. So,
yeah.
But just, it should be Evil versus David Finlay versus whatever Kenta and the cast-offs of the original Bullet Club are doing to figure out who gets to stay and who has to find a new job.
Zach says disband from Bullet Club. They're already disbanded from Bullet Club. They need to just stop existing, period.
Yeah, I need them to evict the House of Torture.
I mean, I'm down for that. I was like, that'd be a great booking call.
And I mean, if you think about the history of Bullet Club, like who was their first antagonist or protagonist is Tanahashi. The whole through line for the history of that group is Tanahashi. So if his final thing is to vanquish this offshoot, whatever, let it be so.
Can it be in January 2025 and not January 2026? I need this done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it could be now.
Yeah. So following that, we had the provisional KOPW title match as Great Okan successfully defends the title against Suzu Suzuki. And this was a hardcore match. So yeah, anything goes. And if Okan were to lose, they would have had to shave their hair and beard.
Yep. That was the stipulation. And he felt he didn't need to use the weapons, but he eventually changes his tune.
Yeah, when this, obviously, Suzu Suzuki, she has a reputation. She's not one that's, shy from the violence or hardcore matches. But when she first walked out and I saw the board with forks, I didn't get a full, look at it. So I didn't realize that it was just styrofoam and plastic forks. I thought we were going full on death match, and I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this right now. But it was this, it was a proximity to a death match. It wasn't quite that, but I thought this match, aside from one part of it, was pretty fucking awesome, actually.
So my thing with Suzu is that she used to be part of a 5-girl group called Prominence, and they all used to be in Ice Ribbon. They all left Ice Ribbon at the same time. They invaded Stardom. They went after Julia, and then Suzu stayed and got signed by Stardom after winning the 5-star Grand Prix. Now, she's had some great death matches. I've actually watched some of them, and I'm not a death match girly, but Homegirl has fought Jun Kasai before. And been covered in blood. What I've realized with New Japan and Stardom, their hardcore match and death match pretty much tells you whether or not there's going to be blood. So when she walked out with plastic forks, I was like, okay, we're pastel plastic forks, because she's in a very baby face, colorful girl faction. But it was funny seeing all of her stablemates in black Suzu Suzuki death match tour t-shirts. But it was I liked this match a lot, except for one spot in the match, because It didn't need to go down that way because I've never seen anyone in any match with Suzu ever have to resort to that as a tactic.
Yeah, I believe you're talking about Great-O-Khan getting the old thumb and shoving it up where the sun don't shine. And not only did he do that, he then pulled it out and put it in his mouth.
I mean, I don't want to get like too graphic here, but like it wasn't even entirely clear where he put it.
That's my problem with it. It came off a little non-con, you know what? It starts with an R and it sounds like a fruit.
Yeah, it was very SA to me, you know. And then the thing he did after it, you know, where I don't know what he did. Like I can't really even quite recall, but it was gross. It was fucking
he put it in his, he sniffed it, put it in his mouth.
I was going to say, I couldn't remember which one he did.
Did both.
Like he was getting off on it, and I was like, no.
Yeah, like a lot of wrestlers have, you know, they have like the freedom to kind of express themselves in the ring, and you know, by and large, they're allowed to kind of get away with certain things. But this was something where I was like, I don't know, man, that's like really kind of crossing the line. But
yeah.
And there's a lot of, you know, it's different when it's a mixed tag, I suppose. But there's a lot of like men's matches in Japan where, as a comedy spot, they do the fingers up the butt and everything. And I don't know. That humor doesn't really translate with me. I don't know if it's a thing over there. I've seen it in some anime, so I don't know.
Well, you're probably thinking of. I actually had to explain this yesterday over at Post. You're thinking of the Concho, which you've probably also seen on New Japan Program. Yes, it's the, you know, your finger guns. It's like, you know, where's the church? Where's the steeple? And it's usually just a straight shot into the butt. Usually boys do it to other boys in the playground. You don't normally have someone doing it to someone of the opposite sex, especially in a venue where you have children. In a wrestling thing where it's already, you know, in Japan, there's, especially with Stardom in New Japan, there is that like kind of like some people wanted to see this, some people didn't want to see this. It was probably not the best move to present in a match when you know there's children, and Stardom is really trying to bolster their number of female fans, especially younger female fans. So this probably wasn't the move. It sucks because for the most part, I enjoyed seeing Suzu Suzuki terrorizing Jeff Cobb and Callum Newman. They looked like they were afraid of her as opposed to concerned about Great-O-Khan with the trash can on his head. But for the most part, I liked that the girls in Neo Genesis actually got in the ring when they were trying to do the ladder spot, because you know how I feel about ladder spots, that when there's not enough good base on it. But it was I really wish that, you know, Jeff and Callum, and I think Francesco Chiara was out there also, that they kind of did more of the seconding as opposed to looking very confused as to why, you know, the baby face girls are feeding Suzu weapons and sliding in the fork board when no one's looking. So it was I feel like it was a missed opportunity, but the match for the most minus that one part, I really liked it.
Yeah, and one last thing on the thumb, it might be a link back to Okan's amateur wrestling background. So in amateur wrestling lore, there's this thing that's called the oil check, where you get the thumb and you jam it up there to get the advantage. I'll say I've never done the oil check in my amateur wrestling days, but it was lore that we heard about. So maybe Okan that's what he was doing there. But besides
Just
that,
food for thought moving forward. Maybe don't do that in a mixed tag match with children in the audience.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of like intergender wrestling. Like, I feel like it works on one of three levels.
Yeah.
One is like for the type of indie wrestling fan who they're kind of like, they like to be on the inside. They don't care whether like believability is applied. Like it's more of like a niche hobby, and they just enjoy it for the artistry of what it is. Oftentimes there's either going to be a death match element or like a comedy element. For me, oftentimes that doesn't totally work because it's hard for me to suspend my sense of disbelief. Plus there's already like that divide between like different divisions. So it's hard for me to kind of get in on it. But then sometimes there's the spectacle, which is what this was. And then there's other times where there are certain kayfabes where there's like, for instance, in Lucha Underground, the kayfabe was none of this is real. It's all like supernatural and everyone's got superpowers. And I was like, okay, I can understand Sexy Star beating up Pentagon because there's a logical kayfabe explanation, and that sort of works for me. But most of the time, I'm not the biggest fan of intergender wrestling. But this one being like a standalone spectacle and the introduction of the weapons as almost being sort of a playing field leveler and kind of playing more into Suzuki's wheelhouse than Great Okan's, and them telling the story of every time she tried to deviate from her game plan and tried to wrestle with Okan. It didn't work out so well, but Okan really struggled to acclimate to, basically working within the confines of the weapons. And then how into it the crowd got, it really started to become pretty compelling for me to where I wanted Suzuki to beat this dude and take the KOPW title. And I don't know if that meant she was going to like defend it in New Japan or take it away. And now it's just, property of Stardom a la the IWGP women's title. I don't know which way that was supposed to work, but I was enjoying this match for the most part.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that would have helped people understand Suzu's the gravitas of what deep her death match roots go is probably a broadcasting where they probably couldn't get stuff off of Wrestle Universe because that's where Prominence usually screens all of their shows. But I wish they could have done like a very short, tiny video package showing how far Suzu can actually go, because I feel like it would have, for those who aren't familiar with her work or her work in like they've only know of what she's done in Stardom, I think it would have helped be like, oh, maybe she can beat Great Okan. Maybe this is the only way that she can probably take it away from him is, bloodying up and throw him in an ambulance. But again, I guess they weren't going to do blood, so they probably didn't want to show how some of the most captivating photos I've seen of Suzu's where she's just covered from like razor blade cuts and glass sticking out of her.
Yeah, and kind of I was thinking like Josh too, like when the Board of Forks first came out, I was like, oh, here we go. Yeah, this is going to be like crazy. I mean, there were a lot of crazy spots. They did end up using the Board of Forks, set it up on two chairs, and Okan eventually did the Eliminator off the ladder to Suzu through the Board of Forks. You had some staple gun action. Suzu stapled the question mark thing to herself first, and then she started using the staple gun on Okan. He stapled Okan in the crotch multiple times, so a little revenge there for the thumb spot. And so yeah, they were wild out doing some crazy spots. At one point, Okan did the butterfly suplex to her on the stage. So there was like a lot of crazy fun spots that they were doing in this hardcore match. And ultimately, Great Okan would get the win and retain the KOPW Provisional Championship. So it seems like he'll probably maybe have one more defense in December, probably in the Road Tokyo Dome, and he could be ending the year as the official 2024 KOPW.
One last thing I would like to say. This match was really a standout match, but I did feel personally, and I'm not usually one, like I'm not like a virtue signaler or anything like that, but I thought that spot was enough to cross the line to where like management should step in and probably do something, because it was really, really like, it wasn't just the spot, but the gesture afterwards was like, especially for New Japan and Stardom, like just way over the line. Like I was really shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, I was already uncomfortable with Taguchi putting his hands down his pants to kind of get like the stink palm going.
Yeah, that was fucking weird too. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you stepped away from that part of the discourse. But yeah, between that and the thumb, I was just like, this is not how you get people into watching a product that you may be new to or you actually enjoy, and you're like, that kind of cheapens the whole thing.
Yeah. And I'm curious about your opinion in intergender in general, because like I was watching this and like my wife saw like the pre-match, the VTR of the press conference where like Okan's like bashing Suzu's head on the table. She's like, wait, she's like, what is happening? Why is this? What is this man on woman violence? Why are we, trying to promote that? And so obviously my wife's not a huge wrestling fan, and sometimes she forgets, it's a work, and like, yeah, these are trained professional men and women, but I guess from a woman's perspective that is a wrestling fan, what do you think about it?
Well, I mean, I actually when WWE did their mixed match challenge a few years back, I really got into it, especially, and I enjoy intergender wrestling when it's done in a way where everyone's, I guess, protected and done safely, or that it's not like the match is done to forward everyone's storyline and everyone has agency in the match. Like if we want to go back a few years, back when Will Ospreay gave B. Priestley that cutter to show Ibushi how serious he was, and it really felt like B was just collateral damage. Like that version of using intergender wrestling makes me uncomfortable because it felt like at that time there's she had no agency. She was just a plot point in a storyline, as opposed to her making this whole to do oh, I'm going to leave you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to that, and then he gives it okay, fine. They made a choice, they had to fight, whatever. Same thing goes with Historic Crossover. Like the first one I really enjoyed, but it was also the matchups that were involved, where it's the whole 5 seconds between a tag, anything's fair game. This time around, the referees seem to have a very difficult time on paying attention as to what's going on in the ring.
They didn't see shit.
They were more concerned about what was for sale at the concession stand half the time, because people got away with a lot more this time around. The matches that we're about to get into, I have a very positive outlook on how a lot of it was done, because it made sense. And the way that it was presented was that no one looked like they were in danger. It was, yes, I know they're all professionals, but it was you could tell that a lot of the wrestlers, I go back to Drilla Maloney and Gabe Kidd. Yes, they were doing their usual, oh, I'm a bad guy, this and that, but they did same thing with Clark and, Taichi. They do so much that they'll sell a lot to make the match feel credible and feel like, oh my gosh, could this actually happen? But at the same time, it's I never felt concerned for the safety of any of the women in the matches. With some of the non-con things like the oil check kind of made me feel kind of icky, yes, but for the most part, I enjoyed this show because it found a good balance on what should and shouldn't be done in a match for the most part.
Good. Well, let's move on to the next matchup here. It was a mixed tag match with mixed tag rules. So we had the team of Natsupoi and Taichi defeating the team of Clark Connors and Tekla in 22 minutes and 37 seconds. So Natsupoi and Taichi, they teamed up at the first Historic Crossover pay-per-view. So they had a little bit of history there together. And I guess they do some training together as well. And then Clark Connors and Tekla, they are dating. And there was a show a couple months ago in Stardom where Clark Connors speared Natsupoi. It was a multi-team matchup, and helped Tekla get the win there. So kind of bridging from that Stardom storyline, we've seen some Bullet Club hate alignment here with Connors and Tekla as well.
They're not dating. They just hang out and spot each other when they lift weights. What are you talking about? They said that we're just two really good-looking foreigners who
they are two really good-looking foreigners
who just happen to have common goals and common enemies, and they like to hang out. They're not dating, Jeremy. Where are you getting your information from?
I'm not gonna lie, I did love their matchy gear. I was a complete sucker for the matching gear. But yeah, to go off of the story with Natsupoi and Clark and Tekla, that was actually part of the build to Tekla challenging Natsupoi for the Wonder of Stardom Championship, the white belt. And ultimately Natsupoi beat out Tekla, but not before Clark Connors came in and knocked Natsupoi clear out her boots. But to go back to the couple look, I do love that their knee pads, they kind of coordinated in that, Tekla calls herself the top bitch and the idol killer. So her knee pad said war bitch with the eye kind of asterisked out. And then, in honor of Clark spearing Natsupoi into next Tuesday, his said, Mr. Spear Ya Girl. And that they're I guess their tag name was Violence and Sex, and they call themselves Clark and Tex, which I think is really, really cute. Yeah. But yeah, and then also Taichi and Natsupoi, they did tag together previously at the original Historic Crossover with Tam and Kanemaru. I did like that they kind of got the band back together after this. And then, Natsupoi actually, not only did they train together, she went on one of Taichi's live streams and they were kind of like having a little like preparing meeting, a preparation meeting, like a little strategy guide together. But like out of all the matches on the card, this one actually had proper crossover like storyline, whether it was, done just like, Tekla and Connors going into business for themselves to make it seem interesting to feed into her whole, I hate the company, I'm an idol killer, I'm going to kill all your idols. But also it goes deeper than that with Natsupoi because they used to be in Donna Del Mundo together. So when Natsupoi turned on Julia and abandoned Donna Del Mundo, Tekla was still out on injury, but she was at ringside watching it happen. So when earlier this year I had the opportunity to interview Tekla for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and I was like, you're going on this idol killer binge. Who's on your short list? And she brought up Natsupoi, and she's like, Natsupoi and I have unfinished business, but part of it is I respect the fact that she made a decision to go on her own and do what she thought was best for her. So there's like this very unique mutual respect between the two of them. And I don't feel like there's like, if I were to shortlist someone to take the belt off of Natsupoi right now, story-wise, Tekla or Saori Ano makes the most sense. But I would love to see Tekla finally get something more than just the High Speed Championship.
It's the white belt?
The white belt.
Yeah.
Jeremy, why does Rich hate Natsupoi?
I don't know. I know he calls.
Excuse me? In the year of our Lord Tanahashi 2024, am I going to fight Rich Latta?
I can't say 100%, but I feel like
I think he calls her. He calls her a terrorist.
She did something. Did she ever turn on somebody or something?
She turned on Julia.
But it was before that. He was calling. He was calling her a terrorist for a while.
She did something, and he has never come. Like he hates her. I think James might too. I don't know.
I'm gonna need to have a talk with your boys about this. This stand.
Oh man.
But yeah, I thought this match was built really well. Had the good VTR. Had the throwback to the first version 1 Natsupoi Taichi from the first crossover, and that all kind of continued. I thought the match was worked really, really well. High drama. Seemed very much like Clark Connors and Tekla had things locked up at one point, and Natsupoi and Taichi kind of came back from the brink. And it did feel like there probably is another match brewing between Tekla and Natsupoi, like you mentioned there, Karen. I thought Clark Connors, not just that he had great gear, but I don't know. Did he not look like extra ripped more than normal? Like, is that because he's going to win in the Dome, or what's going on there? Is it for the Concorso?
He wasn't wearing his kick pads.
Yeah,
you haven't seen those calves since he was young.
I noticed he had the short little boots that Roddy normally wears.
Yeah.
People used to make fun of him, say he had shitty little boots.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He looked extra cut. He was cut and bulked all at the same time, more than he normally is. I don't know if I don't want to speculate, but
yeah.
Man's looking juicy is all I'm saying.
Yeah, he was looking jacked. I think both of them, him and Tekla, looked like a great star tag team. They had that great star aura.
She's in ridiculously good shape.
Yeah, she's jacked as well, and they worked really well together as a team, getting a lot of heat on Natsupoi and Taichi. Towards the end of the match, there was some misdirection there. Connors was getting ready to hit the Gore spear onto Natsupoi, but then Taichi pulled Tekla in front of it, so he accidentally spares Tekla, which opens up to Natsupoi doing a kick combo to him. Taichi then a double super kick combo, and then Natsupoi did her twisting body splash to Tekla to get the win here.
The other thing you need to keep in mind is that Tekla did this whole thing with a wrist fracture and in a cast.
Yeah.
A lot of her offense is it's all about her flexibility, a lot of submission work, a lot of arm work. And like she couldn't do a lot of her match, the usual things you would see in a Tekla match. Like if I were to recommend any match with her, a lot of it is a lot of rope work and a lot of lifting, a lot of which she couldn't do because of the cast. And even though she did, and I think that's why with the brawling outside of the ring on this match, I was fine with it compared to some of the others because I knew that she was working with a limitation on what she could actually do given her injury.
Which one was the one that was doing the flexibility?
Tekla does a lot of she does a lot of
the bridges and stuff.
She does bridges. She does like the
spider
like
German from the top.
Spider German and a lot of stuff like on the ropes. A lot of chokeholds. But yeah, so it was when Natsupoi went for the arm, I was like, ooh, she's actually the murder fairy is coming out. Okay, fine.
Yeah, technically they'd use the cast as a weapon at one point to try and get the advantage over Natsupoi.
Big fan of anybody that uses a cast as a weapon in a match. Big fan, always.
So yeah, Taichi and Natsupoi get the win here. So Taichi finally getting some kind of joy in his life after the betrayal of Sonata and being forced to go back to just 4 guys. So a nice little win here for Taichi.
Did you see him sneak that kiss on top of Tam Nakano's hand as he walked past her?
No, I missed that.
So there's this running joke between them that like it's like the boyfriend girlfriend experience that they do for like his YouTube channel and for like on like social media. So they've done a lot of collaboration work together. So it's maybe Taichi's finally found his smile again. He may not have Abe Miho with him anymore, but maybe he'll find happiness once again in simpler things.
Zach saying, when is Poi going to betray him?
Never.
Maybe Zach knows why Rich doesn't like Natsupoi. Maybe he could tell us.
So moving on to the next match, semi-main event, we had the IWGP women's title match. We had the champion Mayu Iwatani defending the title against Momo Watanabe in 24 minutes and 13 seconds. Lots of history here between Mayu and Momo Watanabe. I believe this is Momo's 10th year of wrestling, and she really wanted to have this big match with Mayu, and she's having this big feud of Mayu over the years, and has tried to beat her, and they have a series of matches. I believe that the score was 6-4 or 7-4, something like that. Mayu having way more wins over Momo, and Momo always kind of struggled to get to Mayu's level and to emulate Mayu.
Very much like Tam Nakano and Starlight Kid and Saya Kamitani. Mayu Iwatani is the mountain that everyone must scale, and Momo Watanabe is no exception. The Japanese commentary made a very big deal about this because Momo hasn't worn white gear or anything resembling white gear since she was the Wonder of Stardom champion and had the longest run with the belt prior to Kamitani defeating her streak. So it was they made a very big deal about the fact that she showed up with the big match whites, that she had just celebrated her 10th anniversary, that, and I was very concerned as to what kind of match they were going to have, even though in the press conference, Momo was like, no, I'm going to fight clean. I'm not going to use my bat. And Mayu was like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? Are you serious? And of course, when hate comes out and they all second her, I'm like, oh, great. Here we go. But it was one of the interesting things about this match was that for the most part, whenever Momo was in the ring, she was fighting clean for a majority of this match.
Yeah, they did have Zach turned her back on Julia. And what's the rest of that say?
Join that Barrico's faction.
I guess they're talking about Cosmic Angels.
That's why they don't like Natsupoi, because she turned on Julia and she.
Oh, please. The cage match between Tam and Natsupoi, the cage match series was really, really good. So you know what? I'm not mad at it. They released the Pop Idol album together. Life is good.
Yeah, no, sometimes for me is like, I understand that like outside interference, cheating, things like that, they're, part of wrestling. It's something that you can't really get around. But some of the best matches where it's used is like where it's used as seasoning more so than like the actual story itself. And they did use it, but it was sparingly here, and it kind of added to the overall story. Kind of reminded me of like some of the times where like you'd have big Jay White matches, especially like the match with Ibushi at the G1 finals, where it's like the story of the match didn't really center around the outside interference, but it came into play a couple times and it was meaningful. That's sort of what some of this outside interference was. But ultimately, like, that wasn't really the greater story. The greater story was the epic between Mayu and Momo. We just saw Momo recently challenge for the IWGP the New Japan Strong Women's title. And that match was fine. I thought me and Jeremy both agreed that we thought it was a little bit overrated and maybe didn't live up to what it could have been at the time. This match vastly outperformed that. And I'm a sucker for the epic. And this was very, very, very much so the epic, like WrestleMania style, multiple kickouts, multiple finishers, like people going for broke, like crowd biting on every single one of those, just being built up. Like this is one of the better matches in New Japan all year. I don't know. I would have to imagine it probably was in Stardom as well, but a really, 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 really good singles match.
The only Momo match I like more than this was her 5-star Grand Prix final match against Shuri. That's the level of what I'm talking about. And it's one of those things where you saw shadows of the old Momo. Which, to go back to my whole diatribe about why Hate has too many members, I was curious. I almost thought they were going to turn on her in this match, especially when she threw the bat out of the ring and they're like, do whatever is necessary. And she's like, no, I don't want to beat this person this way. I want to do it the way that it should be. I haven't seen Momo want to get a clean win on someone in a very long time. But I feel like when it comes to Mayu, that's one of those easily her forever opponents that this could be the beginning. I'm not gonna say it's the beginning of a face turn for Momo, but I feel like she's going to realize eventually that the only way the red belt will ever be in a possibility for her again is not as a heel wrestler. So either she's going to get kicked out of Hate because they have too many stars between her and Tekla and Kamitani. There's it's a bottleneck. They can't all be the main person. I feel like Momo could go on to better things if she leaves that group.
Yes. Zach says she's an all-time coat holder with this loss. What does that mean?
I mean, I guess it's kind of like she's the Goto. There's a lot of Goto Momo comparisons. That she's never able to get the big one, so I guess that's what it is.
Well, a lot of times too, you'll have some of the younger members in factions kind of hold the girls, people's coats as they're like walking to the ring and stuff like that.
Okay,
yeah. I've always been a big fan of Momo Watanabe since I first saw her in 2019 at the New York Stardom show. Was very impressed with her, and she was one of my favorites in Stardom. And then this whole turn into Oedo Tai, now leading to Hate, was very, very weird for me. And I felt like, she was a kind of somebody that could have been a top star. Also, she kind of plateaued at that white belt level and kind of mixing with the kayfabe, was never able to really surpass Mayu. She was able to beat Mayu, but not really surpass her star level wise. And that was a big part of this match of wanting to do more, not just beat her, but like, all right, I want to prove that I can take this title from you and ascend. Mayu's been the IWGP Women's Champion for over 570 days. So to end that reign would have been huge and would have been a great catapult for Momo. Yeah. So she wanted to win with honor. And so there was a little bit of Hate interference towards the beginning of the matchup, but eventually, you had the rest of Stars getting those girls out of there, and then Mo refusing to use the bat and really, showing her fighting spirit and was trying to win it the right way, but she could not overcome the Icon.
The other challenge that Momo has is that, after beating Mayu, she was when the influx of people like Hana Kimura, Julia, Utami started being the super rookie. Shuri came in, Micah came, like all of these people started coming into the company, and she started getting pushed further and further and further and further and further down the card. With her when you mentioned her heel turn being kind of weird, the difficult thing about her heel turn, it happened around the time that Sho had joined House of Torture, and they were both doing the same thing. They were sneaking weapons into their kick pads. It was very parallel, kind of the same thing. They both had the same color, hair color looked the same, color contacts, costuming looked the same. So I'm glad to see that she's finally finding a style that makes her stand out in a group that has a lot of big costumes and big personalities again.
Yeah, I mean, take this with a grain of salt because, again, Kiona.
Oh, God, Kiona 2.0. No! Why do you want to hurt me like that?
When I was watching it, I was like, this was really a standout match, and I feel like probably the best women's match in New Japan since the first historic crossover with that main event between it was Kyrie and Mayu.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't follow this brand, so I'm hearing the story on the commentary. I'm not as emotionally invested, but I've watched quite a few like really highly touted Stardom matches in the past that maybe didn't connect with me. This one definitely did, and I was sitting there thinking like, I don't know, man. Like it's hard for me to judge this on its own merit because it's kind of in a vacuum. But I felt like I was watching one of the best New Japan matches of the year. I don't know how I would rate it. I did just go to Cage Match, and granted, Cage Match is a little bit co-opted, not quite as reliable as it once was prior to Tony Khan opening his big mouth about the shit. And I've always found that Stardom ratings, there's a diehard freakiness like with that. Like
the broshis take Joshi very seriously.
Yeah, they overrate stuff like super, super, super high. So take it with a grain of salt. But like right now we're looking at a 9.25. That's that's the second highest rated New Japan match of the entire year. It's sitting higher than Danielson Okada from Wrestle Kingdom. Now, granted, it's a smaller sample size. There's only 75 votes as opposed to like the other top two matches have over 700. So it's like 10 times the volume. But I mean, I definitely think like top 5, top 10 matches. Like, I don't know how we would possibly have a match of the year conversation and not include this in those nominations when we do our awards this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is a co-branded show. So yeah, I think it definitely fits the criteria for our awards, which this historic crossover will be the last show that's eligible for this year's grading period. So now we'll go into the nomination period. Josh and I will get together and start putting together these the nominations for all the categories. So yeah, I definitely think this is
also known as Jeremy's going to do all the work, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at it afterwards and be like, check, that looks good. That looks good. No, just fine.
So I think definitely this will be a contender to be on that match of the year list.
The only thing coming out of it though was, it felt like there could be a story where it's like Momo still needs to overcome what's wrong with me? Mayu, but it felt like very like this is kind of definitive. Like we've kind of like she's been here for 10 years. They've had this long ass feud. This was like a big stage. Are they planning to have her ever usurp her? Or this kind of felt like this was that, final nail in the coffin to tell you like, no, it's not going to happen.
You're a pro at managing your diabetes, but did you know United Healthcare has plans designed especially for you? United Healthcare Complete Care Plans are made specifically for people with certain chronic conditions like diabetes. See if you qualify, because if you do, you'll be able to access United Healthcare's large provider network for the extra care you may need. If you live in Georgia, you have options. Let their team guide you through those options so you can find the United Healthcare Medicare plan that's right for you. Just go to uhc.com/Medicare.
The changing of seasons can affect how you feel. 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, no matter the time of year.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all. Visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
I think it all hinges on who's staying past March next year, honestly. I feel like Mayu's run, like if you look at Mayu's run with this championship, like the belt is literally a who's who of Joshi right now. There's a lot of great names on there. It's one of those things where I think Momo at some point should get that win over Mayu. It all depends on what the end game and the story is. I just don't know if they're going to, because, Mayu is their Tanahashi. She's the top girl. She's not going anywhere for the foreseeable future, it seems. So it's going to be a tall order for whoever follows her with the reign with that belt, especially with how long she's had it. She should have a couple of more defenses, to be perfectly honest. But it's one of those things where it's going to be, could I see Momo get the IWGP? I think she would be more likely to get a run with the World of Stardom Championship first. beat Mayu in something like a 5-star Grand Prix or a Cinderella tournament or even just a grudge match at some point.
Yeah, Zach saying Mayu ain't Momo's big bad, it's a management.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is that too.
Yeah, when you were listing all the names that came up and she got depushed, it's like, yes, that did happen. They did have an influx of talent, but it also coincided with the change in direction from management, what kind of talent they wanted to push moving forward.
Yep.
That's when you saw like people like Kagetsu and you know, different people leave the company because you know, it became much more idol centric.
Yeah. So towards the end of this match here, Mayu gets the win of her Dragon Suplex Bridge. So great close to the match there. And then post match, Mayu gets on the mic and she's talking about wanting to wrestle in the Tokyo Dome. She was mad she didn't get to wrestle in the Tokyo Dome last year and wants her shot. And she does not want to do it on January 5th, Wrestle Dynasty. She wants to do it January 4th at Wrestle Kingdom. And so she's, you know, cutting this big promo. Then out walks Azumi, and she rolls through the ring, and she makes a challenge. Mayu saying, "Oh, you got to challenge me before I called you out. Let's do it." And then they cut to Taro Okada ringside, and he's, you know, shaking his head. Yes, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So it is official. Mayu Iwatani will defend the IWGP Women's title against Azumi January 4th, Wrestle Kingdom.
This is my Wrestle Kingdom main event. This is my main event. The nuance of Mayu's promo has basically been channeling everything that I think you guys, myself, and a lot of other of the Western fans have been very vocal about, was that you went through all the trouble to make this belt. She's had the longest run with the belt. She, you know, the track record of it being defended at Wrestle Kingdom is not a good look right now. Mm-hmm. We went from the 5-minute match with Kairi and Tam to not being defended. It was defended at Tokyo City or Tokyo Dome Hall across the street the day of the Dome. And it's basically, she was just like, haven't I done enough with this belt? Haven't I, like, I've taken it to the States. I've done here, I've done there. And she was very polite about it, but she was also very much like, honestly, Taro Okada nodding his head, being like, yeah, sure, no problem, Wrestle Kingdom. I would have wanted somebody, I would have rather that answer come from Sugabayashi. Because, you know, he's sitting at ringside. He's the IWGP chairman. It should have been him or Tanahashi being like, I remember how sad you were when we announced this, you know, at the shareholders meeting last year, and when we told you weren't defending it at Wrestle Kingdom, how sad you were. We owe you an apology. We're supposed to be doing better as New Japan management. Now this is our responsibility. So I like that they're telling that story. I just wish it would have had I'm not saying that the company needs to apologize to Mayu for doing her dirty, but I feel like it would have had a little more weight had it come from somebody that's actually on the IWGP committee. Because they're sitting right there, or at least Sugabayashi was, and then Yuji Nagata was on commentary, and he's part of that committee as well. So
yeah,
that's just my little 2 cents about the whole thing.
We did have a question here from Oscar Rooney on Blue Sky. It says, how much time should the women's IWGP match be given at Wrestle Kingdom?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because it does depend on what the layout of the card looks like. It depends on where they slot this match. You know, I mean, I want to say, like, yeah, it should get the full 20 minutes. It should be in one of the prominent positions. Is that realistic? Probably not. I think what would be a good spot for it, in terms of what is realistic, like what can I actually see realistically happening, that I think would be better than what they've done, and maybe a progress. Maybe putting it in that like second to third match of the evening slot that has been in the same place where the TV title has been last year with Zack and Tanahashi. We saw Zack and Ishii wrestle for the Rev Pro title a few years back in the same spot. Give them that 12 minutes, 12 to 14 minutes. That's more than enough time for them to maybe not have the epic that they'd be capable of having, but it's certainly much, much, much better than the 4 to 5 minutes that they had a couple of years ago. And I feel like, you know, ideally, would it be better for them to be like in the top 4? Like, sure, but I don't think they're going to promote them that way.
Yeah. I think, you know, with it being Azumi, they're all like, oh, she's the high speed girl. She's the super fast cyber cat. And the joke's like, oh, maybe they'll give them 7 minutes. But optimistically, 20 would be nice. 15 would be ideal. At least give them 10. That's where I'm at. Mm-hmm. Preferably as a palate cleanser. So if I have to sit through Evil and Tanahashi, put it on after that for a nice little pick me up, please. Put it in a place in the card that's going to pick the audience back up after maybe a devastating loss that's going to happen to someone, or after around the New Japan TV title, but like around that place in the card. Don't make it the opener. It's supposed to have a 60-minute time limit. Let them have at least, close to a quarter of that, if not a third of that, because that's what your bigger matches are going to have.
Yeah, I'm sure that the show is probably going to open with the junior tag 4-way, that normal tradition. So, yeah, I think following up after that could be a good spot for them. And then, like you're saying, I think that 12 to 15-minute mark would be definitely a great progression, and they should definitely be given that. And, Azumi is the queen of the high-speed match and wrestling in shorter match time. So I think it's the perfect opponent for Mayu if you're only going to get 10, 12 minutes to go out there and have this kind of balls to the wall high speed style matchup, especially following the junior 4-way, which we know those guys are probably going to kill it and do a kind of a high paced match as well. So that's kind of where I would like to see it. Hopefully it's not the 5-minute thing that we saw in the past. We also had a question from Def Triangle 720. He says, with another match added to the Wrestle Kingdom card, how are you feeling about the overall card on paper?
Pretty good. I got to tell you guys, and you're not going to like what I have to say here, and it's not necessarily in the best interest of, say, Stardom, but in terms of the New Japan-centric side of things, this is not the match that I thought should have been announced here or that I was expecting, especially given the English commentary. English commentary couldn't shut up about Mercedes. They were like adamant that she was watching this match at home, that she had many things to say about it. And I was sitting there thinking, like, why the fuck do we need 2 belts? And if there is going to be an announcement for a Wrestle Kingdom match for a show that is clearly lacking in marquee matches and star power, why? And there already being the history with Mayu having already beaten Mercedes, why don't we have that unification match in the Tokyo Dome? Mercedes made her big debut there. What was that? Was that last year or the year before? 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
And she never came back and wrestled in the Dome. So it's like, I don't know, maybe they don't want to pay her the money to do it, and maybe it wouldn't be that big of a difference, but it just seems like with the partnership with AEW and her carrying their other title, isn't it weird that she's not like adding her star power or drawing ability or what have you? Like, her name isn't on the marquee, and what bigger match could you do than the 2 IWGP New Japan champions? But they're not going to, and it's like, I don't know. Maybe the Azumi match is big for the domestic audience, but I don't know if for like the New Japan audience it's going to make that big a difference.
For the Stardom audience, I think they'll be glad to see a Stardom match. And this is just my point of view. I'm not reading into anything. I don't know anything. I feel like if there were to be a title unification match, with as protected as Mercedes has been on AEW TV, I feel like Tony would rather have that match on Wrestle Dynasty instead of Wrestle Kingdom. That's the feeling I have, is that if he not that he wants credit for women's wrestling, but it's in his eyes, Mercedes the bigger star. For Stardom Trueborns, Mayu will always be the bigger star.
I'm sure if I go to like Google, what is it called?
Google Trends.
Yeah, I'm sure if I go to Google Trends and I isolate it to Japan, I put both their names in, I'm positive beyond a shadow of a doubt that Mayu's going to come up much higher than Mercedes will be, except for maybe that one, little spike that's going to pop up from when she debuted.
Yeah. I think that they didn't do the announcement for that matchup because there's a lot of politics there. With the unification, they don't want unified titles. They still have a strong men's title. They still have a strong tag team titles. I don't know why we have all these strong titles, but they're insistent that they need strong titles with that strong brand. So that's
they need the strong brand to have the original strong, not just strong talent, but the original New Japan talent on it to make it worth the price points.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm fine with that. Don't talk about Mercedes the whole match then. If you're English commentary, don't bring her up consistently.
Japanese commentary didn't mention her once.
Yeah, so that's a disconnect there. And with that IWGP Women's title, I mean, we've seen that only really defended in Japan this past year. So do they want to spend the money if they're going to have Mercedes win and get them unified and get the win back from Mayu? Or are they going to want to spend the money to bring her back? Is that in the Stardom budget to have Mercedes come in and defend that title? Probably not. No. So I think there's tons of reasons why they're not doing that matchup. But to your point, Josh, why is Charlton and Walker and Tom Fane, why are they all just talking about Mercedes the whole time? Maybe they were trying to
manifest.
Yeah, or maybe they, because it's not like the commentators are always clued into what's going on, and maybe they're like also like us, like they're reading the tea leaves and like, why wouldn't this match happen? It's a big money match. It should be happening, but it's not. It's not going to happen. So it's like they shouldn't be talking about it, because otherwise I wouldn't be biting on the idea of it in the first place. Yeah, but also I did do that Google Trends, and it is literally exactly what I thought it was. I looked up Japan 2004 to present, and it's like Mayu is a vastly bigger name in the Google searches over there. Like even with, Mercedes showing up in like Star Wars and stuff like that, being on Hot One, like it just doesn't translate over there.
Yeah.
Yep. So
also, if they do bring Mercedes out after that match against Azumi, the match needs to be longer than Mercedes' segment or entrance.
Yeah.
Bare minimum.
There's no need for her to have a big grand reveal since she's been debuted. So yeah. So hopefully, if she does wrestle, they do give it enough time, and I can definitely see January 5th a Mercedes match being announced.
For what purpose? It's too late. You're going to announce it now?
Wrestle Dynasty. I mean, there's
you gotta promote that shit. Are we gonna do a promotion, or are we not gonna do a promotion? We're just gonna hot shot shit.
I'm guessing it'll probably be built on the AEW side. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Against who?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. New Japan doesn't have a women's division. There's no one for her to wrestle. Like basically, what's gonna happen is she's gonna wrestle at the show in California, and I don't think she's working the Dome. Or if she is, she's just going to work the January 5th show.
I mean, Hazuki could beat her and get the win back because she's lost to Mercedes before. And then her and Mayu could unify the belts.
That's never going to happen. Yeah. Unfortunately, like Hazuki's not a big enough name to beat Mercedes Moné. Like, there's no way. Like the
Mercedes
only
doesn't need that belt. She has one. She doesn't.
Tony's never going to prove it. She's never going to prove it. New Japan's never going to prove it. Like, that's just never going to happen.
Stop being cowards.
Like, the only person she's jobbed to in the last, 3 or 4 years was Mayu. And that's because it's probably like the only name that she recognizes and respects that is over there,
Yeah. Well, moving on to the main event of the show, we had the 5-star Grand Prix winner, Micah, and the G1 Climax 34 winner, Zack Sabre Jr., defeating the team of El Desperado and Starlight Kid.
Yeah, so this was, I guess for the crossover purpose, like, big names involved, crowd was happy with it, but to me, it didn't give off that this is the main event aura. This is a really good idea to close the show with. And maybe, I don't know if that's an indictment. I don't know if it's an indictment on everybody or on just one aspect of it, but it's like you have the world champion on the New Japan side. You've got the tournament champions teaming up and everything. And you've got this dream couple with Starlight Kid and Despy. And it should seem like it, was enough. And maybe to me, maybe the women's match should have just main evented and this should have been semi-main event. I thought the match itself was good, but didn't fit like the gravitas of what we had just experienced just prior to it.
I think they just really wanted a feel-good ending to the show. Not that the feel-good ending between Mayu and Momo wouldn't have been one, but it's very much I don't want to say that New Japan politics came into it because Zack is the world champion. But I mean, if you're going to have Stardom's world champion opening up the show, this match could have easily been your semi-main event because, yeah, Desperado's return match, great. Him and Starlight Kid have a really cool brother-sister relationship. You know, there is the Taka Michinoku vortex between Micah and Zack, both having the Michinoku drivers that they inherited from him. And then Zack and Despy have the Suzuki-gun ties, and then Starlight Kid and Despy have the brother-sister thing. And then Micah and Starlight Kid, they've had matches here and there in Stardom, but they've never really had a proper rivalry. They've always been on parallel paths where Micah's been focused on the red belt. Starlight Kid tends to gravitate towards the white belt. Yeah, red and white. But it's the, I know they wanted to do a feel good, oh yay, we're all together, we're a big happy family kind of ending. And that, like, the match itself was great. But I really feel like this and the previous match could have been flip-flop, and it would have felt like a bigger payoff for the championship match closing the show.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there were a lot of interconnected ties and story beats between everyone involved, and I thought the match itself was good, was very good, but I think just kind of combining this with the notable omissions and this feeling as though it didn't necessarily carry the like star presence or star aura that you'd be looking for in a show closer like this. It just seemed to miss the mark a little bit, but then again, it fits with what you had said at the beginning at the top of the review, Karen, where you're like, this one didn't feel so much as like a crossover as much as it is like, we're all together, we're a happy family, and like we're doing business. And it's like, this is like a standalone special. That's what this felt like, was a standalone special match, but maybe not something that I found compelling or that had like legs to it.
Yeah. Unless Desperado beats Doki and you get you get Desperado versus Zack at New Beginning.
They did mention that on commentary.
Yeah, they
teased that's the route, sure, but
yeah, they teased the anniversary match potential. If Zack retains and if Desperado defeats Doki, that could be the potential anniversary match next year. But yeah, this matchup, it just kind of felt
a lot of ifs.
Yeah. The Marvel what if? Yeah. New Japan what if? But yeah, this matchup, the tone definitely felt, it had the tone of all the previous matches from the top of the earlier in the card, where yeah, it's kind of like the funny kind of ha or mixed together. It did not have like a ton of stakes to it. And I don't know if Starlight Kid and Micah are feuding or not, and that's going to lead to something, but having Zack and Desperado kind of face off, which is cool. Also, there's the whole Suzuki-gun history between those guys, and we know their past and their friendship and all that stuff. But, at no point would I ever think that as a junior is Desperado going to, defeat a guy that's main eventing the Tokyo Dome in a few months defending the world title. And so I do think that there was just a little bit of something missing to this match, especially following that Mayu Momo main event, like our title match. Like that should have been this should have been the semi-main. They should have flopped that, and I think that would have came off better. Also, I feel like they probably should have done at least one men's New Japan title match other than KOPW. Just like the first crossover, we had the big IWGP Women's title, then we had the big Ospreay Umino title match. So they could have done, who knows, where's Finley at? They could have done a global title match. For Shingo, we could have got like a never title match. Like I feel like we could have gotten another match to kind of match the level and importance that we had with Mayu and Momo.
You could have just thrown Ishii versus Shingo on this card for the never, and it would have been fine.
Well, Ishii's too busy.
But see, that's the problem, is that they're putting all their eggs in their basket for Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty. So parts of this card feel like a complete afterthought.
Yeah. Well, Ishii's doing his winter break in AEW, so he got no time.
He already took a July and August break in AEW. He's taking another.
He's on the Minoru Suzuki excursion menu. Is that what's going on?
Not quite, because he's getting paid better. Because he's
getting them TK checks, is what he's doing. That man's about to be in the He's about to be in the Continental Classic. Watch.
I'll be so, like that will probably be great. And might make me tune in, but like I'll be so pissed if he didn't work G1, but he works the double C, C2.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there were some of the positives of this show, I will say. I thought that even though we're being a little nitpicky and there's some critiquing going on here, and rightfully so, a couple things. Number one, if as a showcase for Stardom, especially for viewers who are not as familiar with Stardom, I thought it did a good job showcasing their talents, and it also kind of showed how hard they work, because while many of the men who did show up, and kudos to them for showing up, because there's a lot that didn't, they didn't necessarily work their hardest or anything like that. They kind of treated it like almost like a house show, whereas like the women were not working like this was a house show whatsoever. Like they were working their asses off and really trying to get noticed and show their hunger, which was great. The match quality was top notch, even if there wasn't a lot of this is going to forward a lot of storylines and have long lasting repercussions. Just the match quality top to bottom. This is one of the most enjoyable, from the New Japan side of things, one of the most enjoyable New Japan shows of the year, just in terms of the the consistent quality match over match over match. And then you had that like top notch match of the year candidate with Momo and Mayu, and then putting the sexual assault part of it aside, the match with Suzu Suzuki and Great Khan was a spectacle and something that was highly unique to New Japan in terms of like death matches. I mean, those are few and far between. Yeah. And I thought the show, while again there are things we can criticize in terms of the entertainment, do I think it was worth like $35 to pay for it as a pay-per-view? Like, no. But it was still one of the very better like shows of the year for New Japan.
This is one of the New Japan pay-per-views, or New Japan like big shows that they've done in the last year, where I didn't close my laptop afterwards and I didn't regret watching it. There have been some where I've been angry at the finish, or I was just like, I just spent 5 hours watching this and it was just kind of meh. Like this, I felt good watching it. I think part of it was just like I've waited so long for the second installment of Historic Crossover to actually happen that, again, going back to my WWE Women's Evolution, I don't hold any torches thinking that that's ever going to have a sequel. But like with this, it was like, this is something that they've promised for a long time. Again, anything that we say at this point, yeah, it is nitpicking. Do I want a little more, for 9, a lot happened. Do I wish there's a little more New Japan representation in the singles or the non-mixed matches? Yeah, but you know what? They could have also, again, but it also depends on who's available and who's willing to do it. I would have preferred more mixed matches, or at least like, make the pre-show too. Like, I think that the Cosmic Angel, the opener, I don't know if that was part of the YouTube free stream or not, but like, I would have liked, put it, if we're going to do a young girls match on it, why isn't there like a young lions match as well? Right. Let them have 10 minutes to do something as well. Like, it was just like, I wanted a little more balance in that, but for the most part, I other than a lot of matches involving hate, it was, I felt good afterwards. I didn't like be like, oh my God, why did I pay XYZ for it? Do I feel it was overpriced? Maybe just a little bit. Like, could it have been free? I don't know how the Stardom, what the Stardom broadcast company, if it's different than Asahi TV. I think they're still on a different cable company, which could be part of the reason for the higher cost. I hope it isn't just like them trying to be like, well, the Stardom guys always paid two or three times a month for their pay-per-views.
It could easily be that.
But it could easily be that as well. But it's if you're all going to be, you're in one house, one company now, you need to find a way to make your platform more fiscally available. When you have a rival platform, like for example, I always bring up Wrestle Universe, they've got 5 major promotions on there, including two of Stardom's biggest rivals, which is Noah, now that they have a women's belt, and Marigold is on there, and Sendai Girls is on there. So it's food for thought that they need to consider building their own platform that houses both of these companies with that has a similar price point and doesn't. You're not running a pay-per-view, because that's why like I stopped watching Stardom pay-per-views in real time, because it was like $40 at least 2 to 3 times a month. I'm like, I have a dog to feed. I've got like bills to pay. I can't keep shelling out all this money. So they need to make it a more affordable model now that they're all one company.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the whole additional pay-per-views to the streaming service. I know it's kind of the ESPN plus UFC model where, you still have to pay your monthly subscription, and plus you have to pay the whole pay-per-view cost. Obviously, it's more probably beneficial for the company to make more money, but kind of what we expect from a streaming service is that you pay for the service and then you get the stuff on there. And then if you are going to make us pay, like, it should be like an out of this world super card, not Taiji Ishimori's playground, and not just a special crossover show like this.
And Taguchi putting his hands down his pants.
Yeah. But also, and shaking it around like erratically, whatever the fuck that was. Also, we don't want you to water down Dominion or Wrestle Kingdom or Dontaku either. Like, we want you to still give us the top-notch shit for free. And if you're going to do a pay-per-view, it better be really fucking good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And here's the thing, and I'll leave it at this. With the critiquing, we would say the exact same. We've had the same kind of critiques in the past when we got Fantascomanias, when we've had Forbidden Doors, when we've had Global Wars, when
Honor Rising,
War of the Worlds, any of those types of shows, the Noah Wrestle Kingdom shows, like, we've had these legit same criticisms. Yeah. There's a certain way to promote and do the crossover and still, I don't know, like, entertain, make the most money, sell tickets. Like, that's what we're all here for. And I do think they missed the mark a little bit, but the show itself was still an outstanding show.
Yeah. And I also think our criticisms, they're not unnecessarily harsh. I think they're very fair criticisms. And we say that, and I think, at least I'm fairly certain that we're all on the same page, is that we have these approaches and these perspectives because we want a better product. We want everyone to succeed. It isn't just like we're, shooting off our mouths because we're angry at the company and frustrated. Well, we want attention. No, we're not the itch that needs to be scratched. We want the company ultimately to succeed. But is it a perfect system? No, but there's always room for improvement. And I think that's where people need to understand that's where our critique of the entire situation comes from.
Yeah. A few questions here about the show. We kind of already answered this first from Discord Daddy, who's asking, do you think crossover was priced appropriately? We kind of shared our feelings on that. He also asked, why do you think the booking of this type of show differs so significantly from the AEW or ROH joint shows?
Sometimes it doesn't, we've had some of the same criticisms in those cases, but it is true that there have been times with, especially like, say, Forbidden Door, where there maybe hasn't been better build, but there's been bigger matches. And I think a lot of that really comes down to, at the end of the day, that's a Tony Khan show, and it really falls on, they've got weekly television. They usually don't build those shows until like 2 or 3 weeks out, but when they do, they're able to kind of build something pretty significant. The money that's behind that show is pretty significant as well. And there's a large demand for it in the States. And, after 2 or 3 iterations, we're getting to a point where they've run out of those dream matches, especially since they raided so much of New Japan's top talent. It kind of, made it a moot point at this juncture. But at one point there was, that appeal.
I think one of the other challenges is that you have, in this particular instance, you have 2 companies that are, they're part of the same company, but they also have their own booking, their own storylines. And as we've noticed with Japanese companies, is they like to keep their storylines and their builds very quiet. This show was announced months ago, and it's like there's no reason to be releasing these cards in the last month right before the show. Like Tekla, like I said earlier, the build between Natsupoi and Tekla, when it first happened, I was like, "What the hell is this all about? Why is this going on?" And it had almost an organic build to it. I don't know if like with Despy being hurt and out for 4 months, if that's why it was kind of like the last minute. Oh, he's coming back. Let's have the match now. But I feel like some of these matches, you could have been weaving storylines together, especially because the G1 and the 5-Star Grand Prix both end around the same time. You've had about 2 or 3 months where you could have been doing slow builds, slow reveals to make it feel like this is something that's not thrown together like a when you have a school project and you wait to the very last minute and you throw it together the night before.
Mm-hmm.
Or you at old shows previously, like when you announce like Super Juniors or World Tag League or Super Junior Tag League, there used to be like a big video reveal at the big show, and they don't do that anymore. They don't. They're just like, oh, check the website and we'll release we'll do a YouTube stream and go like page by page. Here are all the participants. Where you could have done something very big at the last show that was like, what was it, 2 weeks ago at Power Struggle? Mm-hmm. They could have done a big reveal back then.
The simple answer to all this is, like, I understand a lot of this is supposed to be predicated on booking, and so they try to go show by show by show before they ever make announcements, but it's pretty simple. Just do what they do for Fantasticmania. We don't get any of the matches announced until right before, but we're half a year out and they're like, this person's going to be there. This person's going to be there. This person's going to be there. This person. Give us the full list of who's going to be on the show.
Yeah.
So at bare minimum, you can have a concept of what that show might entail. That way, who's involved, and then you can build from there as need be.
Yeah, I think both of you are hitting the nail on the head here. I think it all comes down to the promotion, because even for some of those other like AEW or ROH shows that we might have criticism about, there is always promotion around those shows, and both companies are always promoting it. And when that when they did the ROH and New Japan stuff, like ROH on their weekly TV, they were always pushing it. They integrated the New Japan guys into their TV, and they made a big deal about like the Madison Square Garden show. And then for Forbidden Door, AEW does a lot of promotion in that season and getting guys on TV and building to that show. And so you have the companies, especially the American side of those, like doing the promotion and getting eyeballs on the show. Whereas, for this show for New Japan Stardom, I haven't watched Stardom in a very long time, so I don't know if they've done any promotion at all on their end, but I can tell you from New Japan side, there was none. I mean, also, besides Chris Charlton saying, go to the website and buy your tickets, like there was not a big, promotional video.
There's not even a website.
Yeah, the English website still being down.
Chris, I don't know if you're listening. You might be listening, but like, holler at somebody.
Find the passwords.
But it's all about the promotion. Because like I said, on New Japan side, they didn't do much to really give you the awareness. And they could have shot some bigger angles, or even you could have had like Micah's second Zack to his title match of night, or with Shingo. Like, there's little things they could have done, and maybe even play up the whole like Natsupoi story more with Tekla, especially with how close Tekla and Clark Carnes are, and how Bullet Club and Hate are kind of very similar factions. I feel like there's a lot of stuff they could have done in the build to help promote this show.
What are you trying to imply when you say they're so close?
I'm just saying, Black and White.
They're just friends. They just train together. That's it. It's a partnership.
What I was going to say to build off of that, Jeremy, is that you have Evil literally trying to retire Tanahashi at Wrestle Kingdom. Why hasn't Natsuko Tora shown up before then? Like if she went on trying to retire an old man, why didn't she interrupt the press conference for when they were doing the Wrestle Kingdom one to help set up this match? Like it's just like small little things that they could have done just to connect the dots to make it feel a little more organic, and again, it feel like it mattered.
Another question here from Les Commission 7252 says the card of the crossover show was meh until you got to the last 4 matches, but the show was pretty good. Are you guys anxious enough to see a third crossover show?
Yeah, I would love to.
Depends on who's booking it.
I would love to.
Let me and Josh book it.
You don't want me booking it.
I got the Stardom side. Don't worry.
It'll just be you at the Stardom side. I'll be just booking New Japan talent to wrestle New Japan.
That's fine. I mean, I'm curious to see it. I would want to know how frequently they plan on doing it. If it's going to be if it's going to be like an annual marquee event like Forbidden Door has become, then great. If it's going to be every 2 years, I would want them to be a little bit more transparent of what the timeline is going to be or the frequency, like how, like, and also if we have to temper our expectations and who we expect to see on the shows, I don't need to hear promos of like, oh, I'm against, I don't believe that men should be wrestling women. I don't need that. Let the people who want to be on that show be the ones to hype it up. Let them, they get their own little special show. That's fine. But make it make sense. Make it have some kind of continuity. It doesn't need to be heavily woven into both New Japan and Stardom storylines, but make it feel like something important. Like there's actually some kind of community building between the two companies.
Yeah, especially since, me and Jeremy have talked about this, how, the tail end of New Japan's year gets really, contracted, and there's only so many major shows in the tail end before you get to Wrestle Kingdom. And I'm not saying that major angles could have been built out of this, but 1, 2 things could have been forwarded on this major show in Edion Arena to potentially at least point to Wrestle Kingdom. And there was nothing, you know what I mean? Which is fine. It's not even necessarily about them, but it is a missed opportunity in my book.
I'm just glad Shota Umino didn't try to show up and insert himself in the Happy Field finish.
They did. One thing we didn't mention, they did announce the Stardom show for Wrestle Kingdom week that's going to be taking place.
They have on the 29th is going to be their annual Dream Queendom. Then I think there is New Stars, which is on January 3rd, tends to be their first show. Also, like in that calendar announcement, besides, Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Dream, a new year, Dash, they also announced 2 fan events.
Yeah.
Which seem pretty cool, but I'm wondering where the location is. One of them is in Haneda, which is near the airport, which is like kind of a good hour outside of town. So, and I don't know how if it's going to be a ticket, there were clear instruction as to if it was a ticketed event or if it was like you had to reserve ahead of time or if it was going to be a paid event. But it's cool to see that they're trying to do like a pseudo WrestleMania week where they have like, fan access and they have the press conferences and stuff like that. But the hardest thing about that week in Japan is that there's an embarrassment of riches. There's so much wrestling going on that when you have almost too many events, you have fans having to pick between maximizing their entire experience to see as much wrestling as possible or trying to corral the fans to just watch your programming, which can turn some people off.
I'm trying to go watch wrestling in the bottom of a bar where, they're wrapping the pillars of the building with, like, I don't know.
You want to go watch is it Bakugaijin? It's stupid foreigner wrestling.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go watch Choco Pro and Be the Ropes.
Choco Pro.
There you go.
Be the Ropes.
I'll be on Couchamania. I'll be on Couch Kingdom this year, watching on my big screen TV.
I won't be going I will be going next year for Tanahashi's retirement.
I'm trying desperately to go to that one.
Yeah.
So I can cry in Tanahashi.
2 other questions here about this show from Def Triangle 720 says, do you think historic crossover as a concept could be more creative with their shows? It was very telling that LIJ and other guys had no interest in doing anything with Stardom talent in some capacity.
I have nothing to add. I feel like I've covered this question already.
Yeah, I think
we talked about it a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the show's going to definitely be more creative, and I think, more stars are definitely needed on the show. He also asked, has the excitement for crossovers in Japan died this year? Historic Crossover 1 did around 7,000 during the pandemic, and this show did far less, and then the altogether shows didn't hit the mark like last year's.
I think there's a lot of mitigating circumstances and factors that we haven't discussed, but many of the things we talked about in terms of promotion, in terms of the match structure or lack of major matches being announced, play a role. Also, I tongue in cheek, I made the joke about the exodus of talent to AEW, but I mean, over the past couple of years, the amount of major names in both Joshi and in Puro that have been picked up by the West has really hurt the scene, but at the same time, a lot of that is caused by the global pandemic and people's need to provide for their families and maximize their earning potential. So it's sort of a domino effect, and it's not just the appeal of the crossover. It's the appeal. Wrestling's a star-driven industry, and when you don't have the stars to attract the masses, then even the gimmick of the crossover just doesn't have the same sort of cachet that it might have had in other years or other eras.
I think the other thing is that they mentioned the pandemic, is that for this, when Historic Crossover 1 happened, they were coming out of the COVID closure for a while, but the reason I ended up going to this show was because they had just reopened international travel. So the pandemic had tapered off enough domestically where they were having a lot of like crossover shows and people going to a lot of things. But I think part of the influx of this was that people were finally coming back from international and coming to watch wrestling on top of everything else. Again, when it comes to these co-branded shows and like stuff like that, it all depends on how much is promoted and if it's at an affordable price point, because that was another thing that with the All Together shows, it was for charity, but it was not a cheap pay-per-view ticket that you get to keep. It was a time limited ticket, like many pay-per-view shows in Japan, which turns off a lot of people, or it's too difficult to order internationally or limited to just a domestic market.
Yeah, and I think another issue that we've seen with a lot of these crossover shows in Japan is I think people want to see big dream matches, and across the board, we really didn't get that. All those like all together style shows, even some of the Noah crossover shows, you're getting a bunch of like multi-man matches with guys that have history or rivalries, and that's fine. But like when I think of a crossover show that you're trying to get people to pay for, I'm like, you should be doing, a top star from New Japan versus a top star from Noah, the top guy from Big Japan versus the top guy from All Japan. Like, you should be putting all the stars.
Tomohiro Ishii versus Jungle Kiona.
You should be putting all of the big stars out there in big singles matches and doing cool dream matches, and not just, LIJ versus Congo 10-man tag. Like, that's fine, but where are the big, cross-promotional dream singles matches? Or in this case with Stardom, like, where are the big, like, Stardom team matches that should be happening across this show? Well, that's going to wrap up our coverage of Historic Crossover 2. This week, we have the World Tag League 2024 starting. The tournament will kick off tomorrow, November 19th. So, Josh, you want to run through the cards and maybe we can give some predictions on this week's action?
Yeah, we'll go real quick. So I noticed that we're getting a mix of, over the next 4 nights, Young Lion openers between different combinations of Yasuda, Shomakato, Daiki Nagai, and Shomakato. So they're kind of round robining it a little bit. It looks like Daiki Nagai is working 3 of those matches, so he's kind of working a little bit extra. But that should be good to kind of see all those guys, see how they're mixing up, and whether they're going to extend that time limit so we can start getting some singles victories in some of those matches. In terms of the tournament matches, I'm going to leave the undercard pretty much uncovered. Just it's a bunch of preview tags. But on night 1, we start off with the Block A matches. We've got Umino and Hanma taking on Callum Newman and Jeff Cobb to open up the tournament. Shingo Takagi and Yota Tsuji versus Alex Zane and his mystery opponent. We did have a question from Death Triangle 720. He says, before the reveal, who do you want X to be and who do you think it will be?
I don't know. We got this question last week, and it's still at this point, I'm like, I don't really have a solid idea of who it could be or who I really want to be. I keep thinking back to Shima with the whole connection that Zayn had with what's his name? What's the other guy in Shima's group that's in Glate?
T-Hawk?
No, or Lindemann.
Yeah, Lindemann. Yeah, Zayn and Lindemann had that connection in Super Junior Tag League, so I'm thinking maybe you could do Shima and Zayn, but outside of that, I'm like, I have no really guesses or even desires of who I'd want this person to be.
Don't worry, it's not me. I am not X.
The only thing that would really appeal to me is if it's someone in the same vein as like Archer that he gels with on a tag team level where they can actually have an established team. But instead of it being Archer who is unable to consistently work in New Japan, somebody where he can form a meaningful team where they can sink their teeth in and kind of move forward.
What about Speedball Mike Bailey, or is he signed to AEW?
The rumors are that he's heading to AEW with his TNA contract ending. I mean, it's a possibility, but he's
Jeremy,
he's a
real
junior.
quick, I have to step away, so if you want to take over the rest.
Okay. But yeah, Speedball is a junior too, so I don't know if they would bring.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Taka's in this tournament too, so I mean, I guess you could do that, but I don't know. We'll see. So then the rest of the card, we're gonna have Bishamon taking on the Bullet Club team of Chase Owens and Kenta. Oof. And then the main event will be TMDK, Oiwa, and Zack Sabre Jr. taking on the Bullet Club War Dogs of Gabe Kidd and Sonata.
I'm still coping through the Sonata betrayal. You'll have to come back to me in about a month to see how I'm check in with me, see how I'm feeling about it. The blonde hair's back. I don't know if it means the beard's coming back, but sure.
Yeah, well, we'll see you.
That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, we'll see if he grows the beard back.
Personality, maybe.
Yeah, maybe Gabe Kidd will rub off on him on this tandem here. But I can definitely see Gabe Kidd and Sonata pulling off a big win, knocking off the champ and one of the contenders for the TV title to really establish Sonata's turn here. Then other matches, I think I could see Chase and Kenta cheating to beat Bishamon, since this is the first time that both those guys will be back in the country in a while. I think that Shingo and Tsuji would beat Zayn and whoever his mystery partner is. And then Cobb and Newman are probably going to beat Umino and Hanma, unless Umino is somehow going to pin Newman.
I feel like Cobb's going to pin Hanma, probably.
Yeah.
I feel like they're going to want to keep, they're going to really keep Shota strong, I guess. But I feel like since Jeff already has a match decided for the Dome, they're going to have to keep him. Poor Newman's going to be, he's going to be probably the one that's going to be not being so fortuitous in this tag league.
Yeah. So either Umino's pinning Newman or Cobb's pinning Hanma. It's probably more likely that Cobb is pinning Hanma here. Yeah. Then night 2, November 21st, we're going to B block action. So we're going to have Tanahashi and Jado taking on the Natural Classics from New Japan Tamashi. Then we'll have Okan Hinara, the champs, taking on Taichi and Taka. Bolton Oleg.
Taka's in that pin.
Yep. Bolton Oleg and Yano taking on Evil and Ren Narita. And then the main event, Hiromu and Naito taking on Haste and Nichols. So.
I wonder if they're going to let Hiromu have that monster run that he kind of had in the New Japan Cup where he had that match with Okada many years ago. I'm wondering if they're going to actually let Hiromu get more of the wins this time around, or if it's just going to be Naito getting the wins. That's one of the things I'm most curious about, their dynamic in this World Tag League.
Yeah, I think they should definitely let Hiromu get the wins, especially if the whole end game of this is to set up Hiromu versus Naito at the Dome. You want to make Hiromu look like a credible threat to Naito. So I think having Hiromu be the one to beat some heavyweights here would be a great way to continue to build that matchup.
So my question to you is that if that's the build and that's what the match potentially could be, which one main events the Dome? Is it this match? Is it that match? Or is it the World Championship match?
Well, I don't know. I think they could say that the world title match is the main event and it might be the last match, but Hiromu versus Naito will be the main attraction of the evening, regardless of where it's slotted.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. The whole Zach Umino thing, I just don't feel like it's big enough. Normally they have the one match that's like your big Japan attraction and your big U.S. attraction, and Sabre versus Umino is neither. So you definitely
it should have been Shingo after that Shingo Zack match. That was your Tokyo Dome main event. Like that was the match.
I apologize for stepping away in the midst of my duties. I've been dog sitting while my girlfriend and her brother were away all week, and they just came back from their much delayed flight, and the dogs were going crazy. So I didn't think that was something I could hide in the background while we continue to record. So I am ready to jump back in whenever you guys are. And I do agree. I think Zack and Umino does suck too.
Well, we're on night 2 here. We're talking about Hiromu and Naito. They're in the main event against Haste and Nichols. So I think you give them Hiromu and Naito a win here to get them kicked off going. I could see Evil and Narita beating Bolton and Yano. Yeah. Obviously, Taka's going to eat the pin there in that match against the champs. And then I could see the Natural Classics, the Philippe brothers, pulling an upset, pinning Jado to get their first big win in New Japan.
Here's my hot take. We did a very in-depth analysis and preview and predictions for this tournament last week. I really, at this point, I'm more just interested in certain aspects of the tournament, more so than like trying to predict it all, because as we pointed out last week, there's only so many viable actual contenders to win this thing. Most of them aren't. So the things I'm looking for more like you said, like the Natural Classics, seeing how they're going to do in this tournament. Maybe some exciting matchups if I see one on the docket. On this night, the Hiromu Naito TMDK match, that's the most appealing one because it's going to really kick off that story with Hiromu and Naito, however that's going to play out. Mm-hmm. And then TMDK, they're obviously in the midst of, trying to work their way back from dropping their double titles.
Yeah. So that takes us to night 3. We'll be back to the A block. We'll have Newman and Cobb versus Zayn and his partner. We'll have Bullet Club versus Bullet Club as Chase and Kenta take on Gabe, Ken, and Sonata. Then we'll have Umino and Hanma taking on Oiwa and Zack Sabre Jr. And then the main event will be Bishamon versus Shingo and Tsuji.
Woo! I wasn't ready. Sorry.
Talk about meat.
Woof!
Yeah, when I was mentioning earlier, if there are any particular matches that kind of jump off and are appealing in this tournament, although there's some good positive points, there's not a lot of highly anticipated matches, but that Bishamon versus Tsuji and Shingo match, that one's probably going to rock.
Yeah. And then the rest of the night should be fine. I expect Gabe Kidd and Sonata to get their second win, continue their momentum. Hanma's probably eating another loss in that matchup. And then the champs are probably going to beat Zayn and whoever his partner is.
I'm still, maybe next week, once we find out who that partner is, we'll be singing a different tune if it's really good, or maybe we'll be apathetic to it. I don't know.
Yeah. So that takes us to night 4, back to the B block. We got Natural Classics versus Haste and Nichols. Evil and Narita versus Taka and Taichi. Tanahashi and Jado versus Okan Hanare. And then Bolton and Yano against Hiromu and Naito in the main event.
So that's 2 main events with Hiromu and Naito. So, I mean, again, that's one of the big stories of this tournament is just kind of seeing what the trajectory of those 2 guys are and whether it does, in fact, lead to a singles match for them or not.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of focus on those 2 guys for this tour and then the build for their Wrestle Kingdom match. And I was telling Karen when you were off, Josh, I feel like, because she was asking, do they think that Naito will get more of the wins, or will it give Hiromu some?
Oh, that's a good question.
And I feel like they should give Hiromu some to make him credible, pitting heavyweights to make him a credible threat to face Naito.
Well, he just unveiled that new finisher, which I think is a submission finisher. So if he starts subbing heavyweights, to kind of establish that move, that will go a long way to, creating a believable possible finish for a Tokyo Dome match.
Well, I mean, it's already a plausible finisher, but Naito's knees are like about to be falling apart. He slaps that on, Naito's knees are done.
They're being held together with tape and prayers right now.
Yep. And then that'll take us to night 5, November 23rd, which will be in Corkin Hall. Back to the A block, we'll have Oiwa and Zack Sabre Jr. Actually, start off with Bullet Club chasing Kenta against Newman and Cobb. Then Oiwa and Sabre versus Zayn and X. And then Umino and Hanma versus Bishamon. And the main event will be Shingo and Tsuji versus Gabe Kidd and Sonata.
I think that main event is the one that sticks out to me. And since those, now again, Shingo and Tsuji, I don't think they have a shot at winning this, just given their both being in singles programs for the Tokyo Dome. But I think Gabe and Sonata have a really good shot at winning this tournament or being in a finals scenario. And that is probably going to be a very important match to, really establish that mathematical process of elimination there.
Yeah. Also, too, they're going against the War Dogs, and Tsuji is going to be challenging the leader of the War Dogs, Gabe Kidd, for that global title. Not sure if Finlay will be in the country, but I could definitely see some shenanigans where maybe a Shillelagh comes into play to help the War Dogs try to take out the number 1 contender for the global title.
They'll just send Tekla in. She'll fix it.
She'll hit Tsuji with a spider suplex.
With her cast.
Yes. So that will be the 5 nights that will happen this coming week. That will be back next week to review. We had a question here from Equivalent Side 847. Any changes to your World Tag League picks?
My buddy is sad because his little dog cousin is gone.
Oh no, the buddy.
He's so sad. No changes on my side. I still think that, I don't remember who I predicted last week, but whoever those predictions are, I stick by them.
I think we're pretty solid on Gabe and Sonata.
I think Gabe and Sonata is my pick to win it, but the other plausible winners would be like Team DK,
Bishamon,
and Bishamon.
Yeah.
Again.
I just don't want this whole tournament to be they have a winner and then they put everybody in a 3-way or a 4-way or a 5-way. I don't want them to wash out the point of the tournament with they have a definitive winner, but then they're like, but we want to put everybody on the card.
I'm okay with it at this point. I've made peace with it.
Death Trial 720 asks, are there any new teams in Tag League that you are interested to see how they manage in New Japan for the first time?
Well, since it's just the Natural Classics, yes.
I'm also curious to see who Alex Zane's tag partner is.
Yeah. Hopefully someone cool.
They wouldn't send over a Kaito Kiyomiya or anyone from Noah or anything like that, right?
Good.
Or Jake Lee's not coming back, and Alex Zane is also now in the War Dogs, right? I need a little or Takeshita, kind of a little separation of church and state, please. I need people being that's why I don't like mystery reveals. I feel like there needs to be, I don't know. I like knowing who all the people are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in this case too, it's I like Alex Zane a lot. He's gotten over, but do I think management has a long-term plan for this guy where they're going to bust out a major prospect name and we're all going to be jumping for joy? I don't know. Probably not. More than likely not.
Yeah. Well, that's it for our World Tag League questions. We'll be back to review nights 1 through 5 next week.
All right, well, let's jump into the news. I've got one news item. Jack Bonza won the Tamashi Oceania Cup. We don't know if that will ever air in any form, but if it does, look forward to Jack Bonza. I'm assuming he beat Jake Taylor.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they probably... Yeah, that makes sense, for Jack Bonza, the owner of his own company that partners with New Japan
to win the tournament,
to book himself to win the fucking tournament. If that's not some dusty fucking Vern Gagne type shit, I don't know what it is. So
that's what I would do.
That's what you did when you had your own company.
All right,
that's gonna do it for the news.
Jump into some questions here. Def Triangle 720 asks, what do you think is the main factor on why the junior tag division has stood out more than heavyweight tag this year?
Flips.
Only one established set of titles and several established tag teams, not people just pasted together for the sake of numbers in a tournament.
Yeah.
Better tag teams, better matches.
Yeah.
Matching gear.
The juniors have the Oswong. That's what makes them better. He says, of the Wrestle Kingdom 19 card matches officially announced, what are your thoughts on the card so far? I'm mixed in terms of being excited and intrigued by the card.
I don't know. Well, stick around for our upcoming Wrestle Kingdom review. We'll tell you our thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's a good. There's gonna be some great matches on that card. Like I was mentioning earlier, you're still missing that big Japanese drawing match. You're still missing that big U.S. drawing match. I think clearly Naito versus Hiromu will end up being the big Japanese match, but I don't know what they have planned to be that big match that gets the U.S.'s attention.
I mean, they have a very tall order.
They got Ricochet.
They do.
Yeah.
I think they're in a very fortunate position right now because unlike the past couple of years, Wrestle Kingdom is on a Saturday and Wrestle Dynasty is on a Sunday, meaning they have the tail end of the holiday crowd probably in town or people willing to travel into town for these two shows. So they have a very big opportunity, but I feel like they're putting more effort into the Wrestle Dynasty card than the Wrestle Kingdom card right now.
I feel the effort is low for both.
Which is saying something when I think that one is getting a little bit more than the other. And it's just kind of,
yeah,
it's fine, but I'm like, there's nothing knocking my socks off right now.
Yeah. Sad Goal 8860 says, young boy, you're a horror buff. What do you think of Long Legs?
Yeah, so when I first watched it, I loved it. And if you guys follow me on Letterboxd, you can find me at _young_boy. I think that's my Letterboxd. Let me look. I believe I gave, _young_boy. You'll find me there. Jean-Claude Van Damme's throwing a flying spinning back kick, so that's how you know it's me. If you did, you would know that I gave that movie 4.5 stars, which is they don't let you do quarter stars. They only let you do half stars, which is a flaw of Letterboxd. But I probably would have gone like 4 3/4 at the time. Or yeah, that's how much I liked the movie. I was like, this is a masterpiece. I absolutely loved it. Probably at the time, I thought it was the best horror film I'd seen of the year. It's since been surpassed by The Substance. If you haven't seen The Substance, and you're squeamish, don't watch it. But like, it's the fucking craziest movie I've ever seen in my entire life. And The Substance is incredible. But I think Long Legs is I keep running lists. That's my number 2 rated horror film of the year. The only thing is, when I rewatched it the second time, I didn't love it as much as the first time. Same thing with Late Night with the Devil. I watched that a second time and I still really enjoyed it, but not as much. But Strange Darling, I bet you if I rewatched Strange Darling, I'd probably like it even better the second time. If you haven't seen Strange Darling, you got to see that one.
All right, moving on to Barry Walsh. He says, has Wrestle Kingdom been undermined, or is it a little deflating that January 5th seems to have more hype? And a lot of January 4th matches are now spoiled or very predictable with how January 5th is set up. A lot of tag league wrestlers already have matches booked. It's not helping either, and that too seems a little underwhelming.
That's more of a statement than a question there, Barry.
Well, I do think I can see the point of him. Yeah, does Wrestle Dynasty feel like it's kind of taking more of the juice from Wrestle Kingdom? Maybe, but I don't know. You got 2 shows to sell, and Wrestle Dynasty is not an established brand. Wrestle Kingdom is. So I could see why they're trying to throw some matches to Wrestle Dynasty to make that more intriguing.
I mean, they could just call it Wrestle Kingdom Night 2. So it's not really not that different. It's really just like the second night just to different version of global conquest, I guess. But yeah, it's again, I'm not wowed by either at the moment. I mean, they have there is a good match here and there, like that Takeshita Shingo Ishii match. Happy Hoss-giving to me, but it's I want that level of consistency and interest, and some of these matches have it, but others I'm just like, I feel like it's too little too late, because they could have been building some of these guys up before Okada left and they chose not to.
Yeah. I mean, these look like good cards. I'm sure when we turn them on, we'll enjoy them. It's the Tokyo Dome. There's a certain level of ambiance, but these cards really don't leave me feeling super inspired about the future of the company. They don't make me feel like we're like nostalgic, like we're about to experience a Wrestle Kingdom level Tokyo Dome on either night. It just doesn't, it's not booked that way. It doesn't look that way. And in terms of what I would expect personally from my dream, quote unquote, AEW New Japan crossover in Japan, everything that could have been on the table at one point, that what they have booked is very far from it. Like not even close, especially in the Tokyo Dome, not even in the realm of what that card should be looking like.
Yeah.
And I know some people are probably going to be excited about it because, some of the matches are exciting, but I don't know, man. Like, I feel like the first couple Forbidden Doors are going to mop whatever this show is, basically.
Yeah. Barry also asked, with Drilla and Clark being such a dominant tag team, should they enter Tag League and be a legit openweight tag team who can compete in both divisions, or are they needed too much in the wafer-thin junior scene?
I think they could do both. And in fact, what I was alluding to earlier, when I saw Clark and the way he's looking, I'm like, I don't know, why can't he be like, no disrespect to Robbie Eagles, but like, why can't he be the foreign junior ace at this point? Like, put the junior title on him. He's looking like he's ready for it.
Yeah, him and Drilla are
no,
super jacked.
Not Drilla, just Clark.
He also asked, do you think if Ibushi's career had continued, he would have been the man after Okada left? Would he have been a good fit for the newer guys as a final boss?
No, his body would have fallen apart no matter what. Plus, Ibushi's going to Ibushi.
I mean, I'm guessing that he means in the sense that he didn't leave he didn't leave New Japan?
Yeah, had he not injured the shoulder from the Phoenix Splash and stayed around, would he have?
And then had the breakdown.
Yeah, I don't think so. Especially, since he's come back, he has done a handful of shows here and there. But what stands out in my mind in recent memory with when, Okada leaving earlier this year, this was the same year where he had that match with Marufuji. And we all know how that match turned out. So I don't.
He already had a top guy run too. I mean, I know it was, during the pandemic, but it,
yeah,
they put the strap on him. They gave him the gold. They gave him both titles and he turned it into one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It all went wrong.
He gets the blame for it.
It all went wrong when he signed the contract. He was always a freelancer and everything was fine. And then he finally signed the contract.
It was a lifetime contract.
Yep. He signed that Bret Hart 10-year contract.
That 20-year contract.
Barry's last question: has Sonata broken new ground in his fall from the top of the card, or has another faction leader on the past ever left the group to be a second or third in the group?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like yes, but we're probably looking at like the you got to be looking at like the dark days of New Japan, like did Liger when he left CTU, would that count? I don't know. I know Kanemoto had a group with what was their name? Legends. Oh man, that's a great question. I'd have to dig back a little bit, but I feel like we're looking at like 15, 20 years back for something like that to have ever happened.
I think if it makes a character reset and make it interesting, because I mean, that was the problem with Sonata as a face champion. Even when he was champion, he always felt like very much like Shingo was from time to time, where he wasn't the center of the attention. Like he had the belt, he had the look, he had the makeover, but he was never, he had the charisma and the look, but there was just something missing. So I don't know if this fall from grace and this joining the War Dogs thing could be the opportunity as like, oh, you missed my other joke earlier, Josh, was that I told Jeremy that I think hopefully that being in War Dogs, Sonata will grow a personality, because I feel like he just did like I'm handsome for like a year or so, and it need and this is coming from someone who's a very, very, long time Sonata fan. I want more for him. I just feel like if this is his choice, it needs to yield something, whether it's he rises up as the next big bad, or he gets the reset he needs. He's just missing something now.
Yeah. Next question's here from Les Commission 7252. Should Best Super Juniors in the G1 be the only round robin tournaments in New Japan, while the New Japan Cup, Super Junior Tag League, and World Tag League only be single elimination tournaments? I don't mind the round robin in these tag leagues, but it would help keep the tag division in the heavyweights and junior heavyweight division stay alive with fresh and new matches with newcomer teams.
Double-edged sword, because I mean, on the one hand, if you say that, that's assuming that they're going to continue to give us those fresh matchups in singles formats, and that's rare when you don't have round robin. So you get less consistent singles matches or straight tag matches. So it's double-edged. Yeah, you can overdo it, but you can also underdo it. The other thing, too, from a business perspective, those round robin tournaments fill up more dates and draw more tickets. So, from a business perspective, there's give and take there. I do miss the days when they had more single elimination tournaments, and then they could fill up the rest of the calendar with meaningful shows, but that's assuming they're going to give us meaningful shows. So, I mean, it could be worse. It could be better. It just depends.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with doing round robins if they're going to fill the fields with interesting teams. This year Super Junior Tag League ended up being a really good league. And so if they're going to do that and continue to bring really great teams from both divisions, then I think a league works out. But if it's going to be like World Tag League, when you're throwing a bunch of just random people together, give me a single elimination, bring some other outside teams out and make it more interesting.
I want quality over quantity.
Yes.
Make it matter. Make it mean something.
Yeah. Let's see. This next question. You guys might not care to talk about this on the show, but thoughts on the Paul versus Tyson fight?
Yeah, I'll talk about it. I don't really have much to say there. I mean, it is funny. Two things. Number one, almost nobody saw the fucking fight because Netflix just completely crapped out.
Died.
Is not boding well for Raw when they go over there very, very shortly, that they have to depend on Netflix to deliver the live viewing aspect. And so far, like almost every time they've done a live sporting event, except for I think I did watch the Chestnut versus Kobayashi hot dog eating contest. That one was seamless. But other than that, it's been a no-go. So there's that first part to it. And then the second part was I've seen a lot of conspiracy theorists think it was work. They think Mike Tyson took it easy on him. They think that these guys are working together, blah, blah. I don't know. I've been watching fighting most of my life, and I know an old man when I see one, and I know what a guy looks like when he has no legs. And Mike Tyson, a couple of years ago, when he fought Roy Jones during the pandemic, was a guy who had legs. This guy didn't. And a few months ago, he was in a wheelchair. So I was optimistic. I did think that even with all his like years of health ailments and things like that, I still thought Mike Tyson could probably beat up Jake Paul. But I keep betting against Jake Paul, and he keeps, putting cans in front of him and squashing him. So, it is what it is. But that's pretty much it. There's nothing much there. I mean, Jake probably could have iced him if he really wanted to. He clearly didn't, because he kind of took it easy on him, and it was a business transaction more so than anything else.
Yeah.
Mike couldn't move at all.
I didn't watch the fight. I saw some clips that people posted. Didn't really seem like it was a really entertaining fight.
I felt bad for everyone trying to watch the fight because I was watching the season finale of Demon Slayer on Netflix, and I had no streaming problems whatsoever. But also, I have zero interest in either Logan or Jake Paul or Mike Tyson. So,
but the biggest fight on Netflix I did watch over the weekend, Cobra Kai season 6 part 2 finale.
When I was watching, that's the most it's getting like so ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. I was talking with Rich while we were watching. I didn't know you were watching too, Jeremy. And I was like, this is late 2000s Russo era Nitro with the amount of swerves and turns and returns and blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the last episode, I was like, this is the go home before, like at the end of a Raw before the Royal Rumble. Everyone's brawling, like, and I was like, wait, I was waiting for the next episode and there was no next episode. And I was like, this is how the show ends?
Yeah.
I found out there's a part 3 coming.
Right. I didn't realize it was a part 3. I thought part 2 was the end. I was like, what?
This is it?
We're ending this way? It can't be.
Also, like Rich was like, they're trying to avoid a lot of jobs the way they're booking this shit out.
Samantha Russo don't want a job.
He's like, there's a lot of people not trying to do business on this show right now.
And Britt Baker was on there for her horrible Russian accent, whatever
she
she
had
was
such
doing.
a bad Russian accent.
Oh, no.
Bro, they brought your man Kenny back for no reason. This man came back to do nothing at all. One of the worst utilizations of a great character ever.
Just like pro wrestling, black man not getting used well.
I miss the days when that was just a show about Johnny Lawrence, the good old days.
Oh man. Next question from Miles Commission. Did you guys ever watch the Tough Enough shows that WWE did in 2001 to 2004?
Yep.
Nope.
I did, yeah.
Next question.
Yeah, I don't know what the follow-up was there, but yeah, I used to watch Tough Enough all the time.
We watched them.
Next question from JSK 2002. It seems like Shota's character will take some new kind of direction leading to and after Wrestle Kingdom. Of all the outcomes you could see happening for him in the next 2 months, let's say, what is the best possible outcome and what would be the most disappointing?
The best possible outcome is the outcome that leads to stardom for him and for the company. The most disappointing is the one that leads to apathy and failure and no business. So whatever form that takes, I'm fine with it. Doesn't matter to me, but right now we are not, on track, as we like to say. We are not on track. Not on pace.
This might be a little out of left field, but I could see if he's going to do the whole Naito get booed, he can't stay in Hantai. He has to leave Hantai. I would be interested to see him join the United Empire. Try to make himself in charge of that faction. But most disappointing would be him staying where he is, not floundering and not doing well. Like I don't want to see him beat Zach and then it just be, the reason why he beat Zach was that Zach was like, all right, yeah, I'm fine with it. Because I feel like they need to have, if they don't have a plan in place for him, then they're going to set him up for failure. And that's my biggest concern, is that he hasn't done enough in the last year to make me believe that he's the guy. He hasn't won enough to make me believe that he's the guy. Like I'm surprised he hasn't had like a never open weight championship run or the strong open weight. Like I feel like he needs to not go back to Mox. He needs to graduate from the Death Riders or, Blackpool Combat Club or whatever they're calling themselves these days. But I don't know. I needed something refreshing, but I also don't see him being the leader of his own faction the way he is right now.
Yeah. Zach Jones says he's taking an excursion to the Death Riders.
Again?
Yeah, I think the best case scenario, just based on what's happening right now, is that he gets the John Cena effect, where he has the women and children like screaming their heads off for him, and then the men are booing him. and he just gets this big, like, polarizing reaction everywhere he goes, and it leads to this big dueling chants, and it makes him more popular because you have this, this crazy descendants of the crowd and how they react to him. And then also, the worst case scenario, he just continues to get booed, but it's not like a heel boo. It's we don't want to see you boo. It's a go home Taichi boo.
I'd be okay if he got like the Kenzo Suzuki, treatment.
And in what way?
Where he shows a lot of promise in New Japan, but then leaves and then gets signed up by WWE and then just goes away and never comes back. and then you know what? We give that spot to a Tanahashi, and they save the company.
Well,
I feel like that's a best case scenario.
I mean, Tanahashi has a son, but I think he's still a teenager, so I don't see Tanahashi taking over the company anytime soon.
No, a spiritual Tanahashi, whereas he is also a spiritual Kenzo Suzuki.
Could happen.
I don't see a reason why he couldn't have a stellar performance in the Dome. William Regal gets his eyes on him, makes the call.
Gives him a WWE ID.
He gets ID'd. He's in the ring crying.
New Japan's was it a feeder program for WWE? Is that what we're going with now?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they already are a feeder for both companies at this point.
All right. Well, that's it for the questions. One last thing. Recommended match of the week for like 3 weeks now.
I watched it.
I watched it last week.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
But I didn't hear it because I had to.
Yeah, you dropped off, so I didn't talk about it. But yes, Big Tom.
I'm ready to discuss it now.
Versus Luke Jacobs from was that Global Wars? Was the name of that show?
It was from Global Wars, yes. And I'll keep it short and succinct. A very, very good title defense that had a great built-in story where Luke Jacobs has twice now been unable to beat Ishii, but coming into this championship match as the defending champion, he had a new mountain to try and climb. And this was very good, very hard-hitting, a little slower paced than their other matches, not quite as dynamic, and it had a much worse crowd. This crowd was apathetic as I'll give. And ultimately, I really, really did like the finish where it didn't matter what Jacobs hit Ishii with. He just could not put him away. And Ishii just kept kicking out of everything. He became the Terminator, like just walking through hell, just coming. So finally, like Jacob's like, fuck it. I can't put this man down for the 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna put him in a sleep hold. And he chokes his ass out. and the referee stops it. Some people didn't like that stoppage. I like a referee stoppage. That's just me personally. I thought it had a strong finish. I'd go like 4 stars on this. Maybe not up to the standard of what we typically would recommend for a match of the year candidate, but still a very good fitting end to a great trilogy this past calendar year.
Yeah, definitely not as great as the first. I feel the first match was just magical. They captured some magic there and they had some super great chemistry. But since then, Luke Jacobs has lost a lot of weight since that first match, so he's not as hossy as Ishii is.
Yeah, he's got that Gunther effect. It's not the same, man.
Right. But yeah, this was a great match, but it just didn't hit the same as the first matchup. And yeah, pretty much what you said of, Jacobs pretty much throwing the kitchen sink at Ishii and Ishii firing up, no selling, fighting back. And then he had to go to the sleeper to put Ishii out and get that big win. Finally beats Ishii, and he will move on to defend against, I believe, Michael Oku at their next big show.
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know. He just jobbed what's his face?
Kosei Fujita.
Kosei Fujita. I don't know how Fujita is not the number one contender in Red Pro right now, but whatever.
He should be. All right. Well, that's going to be it for the show. Karen, thanks again for coming in and joining us to get us on the right track for Stardom.
I'll send you my bill.
Well, once again, go ahead and plug all your stuff once again.
All right. So for those who have been following along, you may have noticed on the screen, I am on Blue Sky So I've dropped the hey. I'm trying to get Karen Sensei, but having a very common name that's also popular in Japan, trying to get Karen Sensei anywhere without something attached to it is a bit of a challenge. You can find most of my work in the wrestling sphere at postwrestling.com. Currently, one of the programs I navigate over there is called Post Pro Res, where we cover the entire Japanese wrestling landscape. Lots of stuff, not just Stardom and New Japan, but All Japan, Noah, a little bit of Dragon Gate, some of the stuff in like Sendai Girls. That the November edition is currently available. And WH is my co-host. He also hosts a program called The Long and Winding Royal Road. I am this month's guest on that program, which is now available. We review a match from July 16th, 2006, which is Takeshi Morishima and Takeshi Rikio against definitely a tag team. I would have been a super fangirl back in 2006 if I had watched wrestling, which is Naomichi Marufuji and Kenta.
Yeah.
So we talk about the life and times of that match. What I learned a little bit about, a time of wrestling that I've sorely missed out on, but it is part of his series focusing on 1990s era of All Japan Pro Wrestling and its impact on the greater wrestling landscape within Japan. As I mentioned earlier on this show, my review of Historic Crossover 2 is available on the Post Wrestling Cafe, but you got to pony up some money for it. Probably around the cost of a cup of coffee these days. And that's at postwrestlingcafe.com. Coming up later this month, I'm going to be recording a special Best of Kyrie roundtable with my friends over at the Stardom Cast. Dream Slam Monthly, if you want to learn about Joshi and not just Stardom, the next installment will be available on the 30th. And then we'll be recording Post Perez next month when WH Park is back from his tour of Japan. And, I too am at the chopped-tees.com /Karen-Peterson. The Empress is fall winter collection 24 is now available. You have more color options because I like to have very bright pastel colors. So we've got yellow, a little bit buttercup yellow, and some sakura pink. And I got a tumbler, gosh darn it. So if you want to be your cozy basic bitch autumn, I've got you covered. That's it.
Nice. Well, yeah, check out all of Karen's stuff, buy her merch, subscribe over at Post Wrestling. And I told you, off air, if John ever wants us to return the favor, or any of the folks over there at Post, we're happy to be guests over there and return the favor.
Oh, you're trying to politics so we can get appearances on other people's shows?
I'm just saying, Karen is, she comes on the show, she knows to declare it with the boss, and got to make sure.
Jeremy's just looking for his path to get a Hall of Fame ballot is what that really is. We're trying to figure out how we can get a degree.
I don't have a Hall of Fame ballot. You got to talk to John Way about that.
Right. We're trying to reach the tentacles out, get a degree closer.
I'm just saying, we're taking their talent, putting them in our promotion. I'm just trying to do a crossover, a trade,
this is I am your legend that comes back for the special showcases. It's just happening a lot more frequently as of late.
Numbers are down. We need a draw.
I'm your girl. Just put me in, coach.
Are the numbers down, Jeremy? Are we doing okay?
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay.
I mean, if New Japan was hotter, we'd be probably doing better, but we're good. We're good.
Breaking news: Keeping It Strong Style.
Well, that's gonna wrap it up. Next week we'll be back to review the first 5 nights of World Tag League. Remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KIStrongstyle. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us and follow us on social media on X, even though I'm not really using that much more. Follow us at KI Strong Style.
Wait. Does this mean you're not on X anymore?
I mean, the accounts are there. I'll continue to post our shows on there, but I'm.
So does this mean I have free reign to do whatever the fuck I want?
No.
I still have the login. I'll still get the notifications of when you.
I'm gonna change the fucking password on you. You're not gonna know.
It's my email for the recovery email, so good luck with that.
I'm going to change it to young boy Joshua Smith at Keepin It Strong Style. It's going to be mine now.
Oh, no.
But we are using Blue Sky a lot more. So at Jeremy L. Donovan, at Kaz Strong Style, at Social Suplex on Blue Sky. Really great platform. We're getting a lot of users over there and getting a lot of love on those platforms right now on our accounts. Also,
Jeremy founded what is it that you created?
Did a starter pack of black wrestling content creators. So check out that starter pack on my profile. You can follow a lot of the great black wrestling content creators out there in the wrestling space. Obviously, our friends Rich Latta. There's Lyric Swinton, who's been on several Social Suplex shows in the past. Phil Lindsay, Righteous Reg from Grapsody. So a lot of those great guys on that list.
Look, I like and appreciate all those content creators, but I think it's bullshit. I can't be on there. Like, I want to be part of the club, and I can't.
There's no Keepin It Strong or Social Suplex starter pack. We've got a post starter pack.
Yeah, Sir Sam did make a Social Suplex starter pack for us.
Wait, what is a starter pack? I thought this was some trendy thing you came up with, Jeremy. Is this part of Blue Sky?
It's part of Blue Sky.
You make a list of people to follow, and you just go on there, and it auto subscribes you to all these people.
Yeah,
I'm gonna create a Owen Hart starter pack.
You need to get on Blue Sky first, buddy.
You can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/socialsuplex, a Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group, on Reddit on the Pro Black Guy, also Keepin It Strong Style. On YouTube, we're at Social Suplex. You can join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd, All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin, Imps WWE Adventure with The Implications, Matthew Mayer, Wrestling Art with Chris Slings, Tunnel Talk with Ali and Leah, and the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keepin It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
It's your bum.
Thank you for listening to Keepin It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
The changing of seasons can affect how you feel. 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, no matter the time of year.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all. Visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.